Marvel. Tony Stark, I have a genius son stronger than me. Chapter 81. Hey, Phil Coulson, what can I do if you call me? Mark asked when he received a call from Phil Coulson on the helicopter. Since the last time he helped S.H.I.E.L.D. to solve the power problem of the Sky Mothership, Phil Coulson has not contacted himself for a long time. Greetings from Jushu, Mark. I hear you are very noisy right now. Is it convenient to answer the phone? No problem. Tony just received the helicopter I gave him as a birthday present, so he pulled Pepper and me up for a test flight. If you have anything to say, I can hear you clearly. Okay, Mr. Director, I hope that can invite you and your father Tony Stark to meet tomorrow. I don't know if it would be inconvenient. I have no problem with this, but I have to ask Tony if he has time. I will reply to you later, Phil Coulson. That's okay, I won't bother for now, I'll contact you later. Randy's Donuts Donut Shop on the second day. Is this asking us to discuss your Superboy group? To be honest, I'm not interested. On a deck by the window in the store, Tony and Fury are opposite each other, and Mark is sitting next to Tony. I remember, you like to do everything by yourself. The difference is that you mess up things, but Mark can solve them perfectly. Isn't it ironic? How about the preparation of new elements? Are there any results? Hearing Nick Fury mentioning the new element, Tony opened his eyes wide and looked at him, acting very surprised. How did you know that I was looking for the new element? After that, Tony stared at his Kazilin with big eyes and looked at Mark. You even told him backquote. It was obviously suspected that it was Mark's big mouth. Mark looked innocent and replied, it's really not me. When did I reveal your news to people who have a normal relationship with you? I'm all selective, okay. You are not what Mark revealed, but this is a beautiful red-haired beauty in a black tights and a slender figure who walked over behind the father and son, and said to Fury, I quieted the whole area, but it's better not to spend too much time. Seeing this man's face, Tony suddenly said angrily, you have been fired, Miss Natalie. Fury stepped aside, let the incoming person sit next to him, and then introduced, Tony, this is Natasha Romanoff, the 7th level agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Ha ha ha. Just when Tony was shocked in the truth of the matter, Mark next to him broke the serious atmosphere. Father, you won't always realize that there is an agent lurking next to you, do you? Yes, I'm much better than you. The agent Melinda next to me sent by S.H.I.E.L.D. was noticed by me on the first day. Although Mark recognizes that both Melinda and Natasha Romanoff are due to the prophetic advantage of crossing the rebirths, but there is a chance to laugh at Tony, Mark will not be soft. But Fury and Natasha Romanoff on the side were indeed in shock. They did not expect that one of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s most elite and top agents, the Iron Cavalry, Melinda May, was discovered by the surveillance subject on the first day of incubation. If it wasn't a good, law-abiding and kind kid like Mark, but a vicious criminal, Melinda might be in danger. I'm sorry, too, but I have no intention of sending someone to monitor you. I just want to protect you and observe whether you have the qualifications to join the Avengers project. And if that weren't the case, I didn't know that Tony, you were already ill, let alone Mark, you still had so many good things hidden in your hand that you didn't take out. It seems that the price of our last transaction did not satisfy you. Quote, I'm not sick, but palladium poisoning, Tony said stiffly. Really, if it weren't for the help of Mark's nutritional dormancy capsule, would you still be so alive and kicking now? But I have figured it out. I looked through Howard's previous manuscripts and I believe that new elements that can replace palladium will soon be found. Maybe I have something in my hand that can help you. 3 minutes later, Nick, backquote, thank you both for coming over today. This conversation is very pleasant. Mark remembers the transaction between us. If you have time, bring your invention list with you. I will open the highest authority technical information for you to choose from this time. Before leaving, I would also like to ask, how on earth did you judge Agent Melinda's identity the first time you met with Agent Melinda? Quote. Mark raised his eyebrows, his thoughts flashed, and he said, since you have asked sincerely, then I will tell you compassionately, in order to maintain, crosswords. Cough, that's it. I previously developed an emotional perception system for Dubai. Through the algorithm derivation and reverse inference of this system, I developed a system called Sibylla that can capture faces through surveillance cameras. Information, judge the threat value of this person to me and the corresponding emotion. Melinda came for the interview for the first time. Not only did the applicant show no respect for my future boss, but her threat value even far exceeded that of adult men in our company. Such women are generally engaged in unusual jobs, and Melinda's temperament I have only experienced in Phil Coulson, so I knew that she was an agent when I first met. However, just now it was determined that Agent Romanoff was the agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., and combined with the similar entry time of the two, I determined that Melinda was also a person sent by your S.H.I.E.L.D. Quote. Happiness. Wonderful. Nick Fury applauded Mark's reasoning. It seems that our agent needs to continue to improve, otherwise it will be replaced by advanced technology. Meet again, Tony and Mark. Stark Manor. Nick Fury visited this place again. But unlike the last time he sneaked in the dark, Fury had sworn from that day that he would only enter this place openly during the day. Thinking of the last experience of being tied by Mark's 5 flowers, Fury is still impressed. Mr. Secretary, will you have time to talk to me about our deal after you finish talking with the old man? Baby, I'm all ready. Mark shook his hands and rubbed his palms. The light of money gleamed in his eyes. Fury, it's okay, I think it doesn't matter if other things are delayed compared to the deal with you. Then talk about it first. I'll take the real thing to the laboratory in the underground garage. Mark turned and left, and at the same time tens of thousands of miniature magnetic axis robots began to move under his control. Fury is very enthusiastic about Mark's ability and technology. If Tony's invention makes him feel like a visionary, then Mark is more like a doer. For their agents whose heads are tied to their belts, nothing is more attractive than Mark's invention. But to get back to business, we still have to solve Tony's problem first. Tony, do you know that the thing on your chest is made based on unfinished technology? Tony, I already know this. I also found some clues from the research manuscript left by Howard. He should have discovered a new element that is efficient, clean, non-toxic and harmless at that time, but it is limited. Due to technical limitations at the time, there was no way to complete the preparation of new elements, so palladium metal was used as a substitute. I miniaturized this unfinished technology and greatly improved the efficiency of operation, and then applied it to myself, but finally got myself into trouble. Unfortunately, I could not find the molecular structure of this new element in his manuscript. Quote. Fury. Yes, your father said that the arc reactor is just a springboard for greater technology. He was preparing to start an energy competition that would make all his opponents beyond the reach. He has found a super energy clue. The nuclear reactor is here. It will look like a 3A battery in front of it. Tony, I think Anton Vanke is also involved in this project, right? Fury, yes, Anton Vanke thinks it will make him a lot of money. Your father will deport him when he finds it out. When Lao Mauzi found him useless, he exiled him to Siberia. He has been drunk and angry for 20 years. World life. This is not very good for children to grow up, and what you meet in Monaco is his son. Quote. Tony, then how can we achieve this kind of super energy? Fury, your father said that if you want to complete this plan, you can only rely on your wisdom and resources. It's impossible, Tony resolutely denied. My father never affirmed me. He is cold and savvy. He never said that he loves me or likes me. I can hardly believe that he would say me able to complete his great plan. It's not like that. Fury's response was also firm. Really, it looks like you are forcing me to understand my father better. Tony questioned. In fact, yes, he is one of the earliest founding members of S.H.I.E.L.D. After speaking, Fury got up, and his agents moved a box in front of Tony. What? Wait, what's this? This is what your father left for you. Unravel it. Phil Coulson and Natasha Romanoff will be here to watch you until you solve the mystery and complete the super energy, otherwise you don't even want to leave the villa in one step. NS. Well, I'm very busy today, so I have to talk to Mark about our deal first. Quote. Comma. After leaving Tony and just outside the glass door of the laboratory, Fury was already shocked by the sight in front of him. Tens of thousands of miniature magnetic axis robots placed items neatly in the laboratory, while Mark was held up and commanded all this. It really opened my eyes. Is this technology in our trading list today? Fury walked in and asked Mark. If you want, definitely, too. But this thing is not a spinning thing that ordinary people can play. If you want to control so many micro-robots at the same time to cooperate and multitask, there is no smart one. The brain doesn't work, Mark explained to Fury. It seems that I need to find a few smart people to come over and try it out. Let me show me the other inventions you have prepared. I look forward to your demonstration. Haha, let's start with the nutritional dormancy cabin you are familiar with. I have already told you its general function to Agent Romanov, but you probably don't know the key information yet. The nutrient dormancy chamber uses high-speed electric cores to decompose and reorganize the nutrient solution injected into it to become a special substance that can repair the human body and provide necessary nutrients and energy. And this nutrient solution is obtained by improving the super soldier serum that I got last time. Quote. What? Nick Fury widened his only remaining eye in surprise, staring straight at Mark. So you have successfully restored Dr. Erskine's super soldier serum formula. Quote. Yes, this formula is not difficult to restore. After all, Dr. Erskine still has a lot of information. If you reverse it, all the scattered time will add up to 2 days. Difficulty is not too high. When I heard this, Fury was struck by lightning. This is more than the Four Kings. Wang Mumu who has nothing, ordinary family Ma Mumu. Ma Mo regrets creating Ali, not knowing his wife and beauty Lu Mumu, and it makes people crazy. We, S.H.I.E.L.D., and even the military did not complete it for decades, and even accidentally made a Hulk. You actually took 2 days to complete it, not too difficult. My one-eyed bald man can't help on the toilet wall, so I will convince you. The ability to repair trauma, even cell and genetic damage, is indeed an artifact for S.H.I.E.L.D. agents who are born and die. It can greatly reduce the chance of death and injury of agents when they are on mission. But I restored the super soldier serum to you, more interested. From the perspective of Nick Fury, it is natural not to fail to see the great value of the nutritional dormancy warehouse. However, compared to the super soldier serum that allows ordinary people to break through their physiological limits and successfully create a legendary character like Captain Steve Rogers, the appeal of the nutritional dormancy warehouse is still eclipsed. Since its predecessor, the Strategic Science Corps, S.H.I.E.L.D. has always had an inextricable entanglement with the super soldier serum. Since the death of Dr. Erskine, S.H.I.E.L.D. and even the entire America have consistently invested a lot of energy and funds for decades in order to be able to restore this obsessive technology. It is a pity that for many years, even if countless scientists, who can be called the essence of human wisdom, have devoted their entire lives, the result is only hovering at the door of success. Although numerous semi-finished products have been derived, none of them can be restored without side effects to bring the effect to Captain America. For this obsession that has lasted for more than half a century, when he heard that Mark had restored Dr. Erskine's super soldier serum, Fury also wanted to seize the opportunity in front of him. And he carefully designed the relevant materials of the super soldier serum and the PIM particle as the reward for the transaction. Isn't it true that he has such a mind? But Mark shook his head, refusing quite firmly, this won't work. Not to mention that S.H.I.E.L.D. has now become the world's largest terrorist organization, the largest base of Hydra. The super soldier serum has a major flaw. It's not that I don't want to make this deal. The leader of John Schmidt should be no stranger. In the information given to me by S.H.I.E.L.D., Dr. Erskine left a clear record that super soldier serum not only strengthens the body, but also strengthens the spirit. It magnifies the user's innermost side that accounts for the highest proportion, and John Schmidt has become the most fierce and evil Red Skull under this effect. It was because of this experience that Dr. Erskine felt uneasy in his conscience and fled to America. And after he improved the serum in a new step, when he chose a new test subject, he chose the thin and fragile Steve Rogers because of his loyal and unyielding heroic heart. This is why I didn't use super soldier serum for myself. Until the results come out, you never know whether you have created a great hero or the most vicious criminal. Quote. After listening to Mark's explanation, Fury was also silent. He now somewhat understands why Dr. Erskine was hesitant to hand over the formula to the government after completing the improvement of the serum. I am afraid that he was worried about his own technology in a war environment. It was used indiscriminately by politicians and eventually led to the war even more out of control. And even in this peaceful age, Fury can't imagine the chaos that criminals like Red Skull can be produced in batches. After careful consideration, Fury looked at Mark very seriously and said, "Can you ensure that the formula you restore will never be known by the second person?" Fury's question means that he has given up on the deal with Super Soldier Serum. At the same time, he also hopes that this technology will remain as Mark's secret forever before it is truly perfected. Mark smiled slightly and pointed to his head and replied, "Don't worry, it's all here, to ensure absolute safety." "Well, I believe you can keep this secret with your ability, so let's show the next thing." Fury knows that Mark has enough technology to protect his own safety, so the formula of Super Soldier Serum is preserved. In Mark's mind, it is arguably the safest choice. "Ah, is it so reckless? I thought you were going to put me under house arrest and not see anyone for the rest of your life. We are a formal government department, not a criminal organization. How could we do this?" Fury was full of black lines. "And with your and Tony's technology, I dare not." This sentence is from the bottom of Fury's heart. "Idea. Well, I believe you for the time being. This second invention, you should have also received information from Agent Romanov's report. I just made a PY transaction with the military committee, and it was this shield leader that happened. Device. I remember that in the last transaction, you asked me to design a power system for an aerospace carrier. I think this thing is still very practical for you. I guess that your big ship should only be equipped with the anti-missile detection and interception system currently used by the military. For such a flying target, this kind of defense is quite dangerous. And I have done an upgrade to the generator these days, no longer need to turn it on manually. The newly added detection radar can automatically detect threats and automatically turn on the shielding field, which improves safety and greatly saves energy. Not only that, using the same principle, the shielding layer can not only serve as the most solid protection, but also the most reliable super prison. As long as the battery life of the generator can be maintained, no one can escape its range. Quote. Hearing Mark's description of the super prison, Fury raised his brows and looked very excited. Adding a shielded field defense system to the aerospace carrier, Fury is not unimaginable. However, the construction cost allocated by the World Security Council is now stretched out. I really can't afford this big money sweeping and can do, so I can only consider increasing it when upgrading the mothership in the future. However, the idea of the super prison is to make Fury's heart move. Recently, the main body of the Sky Mothership has been completed. When planning the interior, a special detention room was specially designed to trap those with super ability. The enemy, now it seems that a super prison using a shielded field is undoubtedly the most suitable solution. Never mind the defense of the Sky Mothership. We don't have that much money to pay for electricity, but the idea of a super prison is possible. It happens that there is a detention room with special requirements that needs to be built. You will also need to help us design it at that time. No problem, as long as the technical information you come up with at that time can satisfy me, this design is included as a gift. Next, the third item is the last invention today. I think this is the most suitable one for you. Quote. For me, Fury can now be said to be full of question marks. Did Mark also develop an invention specifically for himself? Yes, it suits you very well, after all, you only have one eye. Mark looked at Fury and said pityingly. Go to hell, brat. You give me back what I have just moved. Do you need to remind me about the fact that I only have one eye? Need your sympathy, ma mess with fake. Although my mother has already sold it in my heart, the strong qualities of being the king of agents still keep Fury from changing his face. Oh, is it? Thank you for noticing this. Then please show me what this invention is. How suitable for me. Listening to Fury's yin and yang tone, Mark also seemed to have realized something. He quickly took out his big baby and showed it to Fury. Look, this is the last thing today. I named it Artificial White Eyes. Fury saw Mark dig out his pants pocket and took out a red hairband of unknown material from the inside and showed it in front of him. Mom messing with FAC. Close black lens bracket. Fury was furious in his heart. Open black lens bracket. No, I have to hold back. Does this stinky kid know that I don't have hair to humiliate me? I even said what is an invention that is particularly suitable for me. It is true that Lao Su has become bald, but I have also become stronger. Close black lens bracket. After discovering that Fury on the other side saw his invention this time, not only did he not inquire about its function and usage, but he was even very silent. Mark looked up, and when the black shiny bald head came into view, he realized there was a wave of one-eyed bald man Nick Fury and invisible, which was really not my inner thoughts. For fear that there will be more misunderstandings, Mark quickly explained, "Don't look at this thing as a hairband, but in fact its function is not simple. You don't have much feeling just to say it, so it's better to try it yourself. The function is ready, I promise to surprise you." Fury thought for a while. Mark's credit rating here is still very high. It seems that he might have really misunderstood it, or maybe. After adjusting his not beautiful mood, he took the headband in Mark's hand and asked, "How to use?" The metal electrodes on both sides correspond to the positions of the temples, and then you can wear them on your head. After you wear them, the device will automatically sense and start. Fury obeyed Mark's instructions and quickly put on this hairband-like thing. But after 3 seconds, Nick felt as if another electric current had crossed his scalp, and then the world changed. No, it should be said that his perspective on the world has changed, not psychological feeling, which means literally, as a Cyclops, at the moment, he actually obtained 360 degrees of vision without blind spots. This is incredible. Fury was overly excited, even speaking not smoothly. In his field of vision, the front, back, left, right, up and down, all the scenes in any direction are in view, but the visual management area of the brain is not confused because of this, and he can still clearly distinguish things in each direction and make accurate judgments. The distance between them and yourself. In order to judge whether his feelings were accurate, Fury took out a pen from the pocket of the windbreaker, and then flung his back directly to the pen holder on the experimental platform behind him. The pen fell exactly into the pen holder, not much different from Fury's expectation. But this invention is not perfect. If you really want to pick out a fault, that is, except for Fury's own eyes that can really see the scenes with colors, the other additional perspectives augmented by the invention can see all the scenes. It is composed of light blue light of different shades, which is very monotonous. But there is no other way. I didn't see that it was just a whim when I invented this thing, and I didn't put too much energy into it. At that time, he had just completed the construction of the virtual laboratory. While studying the PIM particle, Mark will also use some of the existing technologies and make some small inventions to relax his mind and body. This artificial white eye uses the holographic scanning device used on Dubai's body, and the virtual reality device that Mark has just developed is also using the Mindwave device, which is an unexpected surprise caused by a slight combination of structures. The entire headband has a ring-shaped holographic scanning array on the periphery, which can scan and record the scenes of the wearer in all directions and transmit them to the graphene core chip. The chip will restore and process the data to prevent the brain from receiving after this information. There is not enough to deal with the ability department. The processed information will be all transmitted to the visual center of the user's brain by the IdeaWave device, thereby constructing a 360-degree omnidirectional vision with no dead ends. Because its function and display effect are similar to the white eyes in an anime that Mark has chased in his previous life, I named it Artificial White Eyes. Fury reluctantly took off the hairband. No, it was artificial white eyes. I don't know how many years I haven't seen the world around me so clearly. I think that before my left eye was scratched by the primordial beast, the hair on my head was still thick, and I could be called a handsome character. Revisiting this experience today, Fury almost left the tears of a middle-aged man because he remembered the past. But at this time Mark stopped him. "Hey, don't pick it, I haven't finished the experience yet. I haven't finished the experience yet. Does this artificial white eye have other functions?" Fury asked, somewhat surprised. To be honest, even if it's just a function that he just tried, even if Mark makes a sky-high price and is willing to have all the technical details of S.H.I.E.L.D., he has to change this thing. With artificial white eyes, this is equivalent to an agent opening a full-view plugin. From then on, it is no longer afraid of sneak attacks, and it can have a miraculous effect in the face of siege. Now Mark even said that it has more functions. Regardless of whether it is practical or not, Fury's desire to shop has been completely drawn out. When the show is over, he must complete this transaction with Mark. Yes, there are other functions. Since it is going to be opened and hanged, then what is the full view plugin? You have to have a god's perspective to be a real hang-up. You can try to double-click anywhere on the hairband. Try it out. After listening to Mark's instructions, Fury hurriedly put on the headband again and double-tap with his finger on the forehead. Sure enough, after completing the operation, Fury's perspective changed again. From the original centering on itself, there was no dead corner to diverge, and it became a bird's eye view from the air. Every plant and tree in a radius of 1 kilometer can be used by oneself. A glance. The principle of this function is actually very similar to the 360-degree full vehicle visualization system on the car. The 360-degree panoramic image of 1 kilometer in a radius of 1 kilometer obtained by the holographic scan through the core processor is a seamlessly spliced timely image information. That is Fury's view of the bird's eye view now. Try double-clicking the headband again, there are new surprises. Seeing that Fury has gone upside down and turned like a wave, Mark knows that he has lost his reference and cannot maintain his balance due to the switching of the viewing angle, so quickly let Fury switch to the next function. Hearing Mark's voice again, Fury barely managed to prevent himself from falling down on the opponent. The dignified director Shield couldn't lose face here. He raised his hand and double tap in quick succession. Then the angle of view quickly switched again, making Fury feel as if he was falling to the ground quickly in midair. The heart beats wildly. But he soon discovered the strangeness of this scene, as if he was observing the world with two eyes. Ha ha ha, have you discovered the surprise I prepared? This is for your purpose of upgrading the function these days. As long as the brain's visual center is not damaged, whether it is myopia, astigmatism or blindness, you can use artificial white eyes to return to normal, or even it is an extraordinary visual ability. Because there is no need to process the full view image information, the remaining calculation capabilities of the core processor can render and color the collected images, correct the transmitted images, and achieve the sensory experience of normal vision. I have already planned to take out this function separately and release it as a new product in the medical field at the next press conference. Quote, "It seems that what you said is not wrong. This is indeed the most suitable thing for me among the 3 inventions today. I never thought that my left eye would one day be able to restore vision. This is the power of knowledge and the power of science. As long as the combination of mind wave technology and mechanical technology, it will not only allow disabled patients to return to normal in the virtual world, but also regain their health in the real world. I look forward to seeing that day, when I will give you the greatest respect and gratitude to all the agents who were disabled during the mission." With that, Fury also paid respect to Mark Lee. Mark feels a little embarrassed instead. Don't be like that, it's embarrassing. There is one last function for this artificial white eye. You can also try it. The 3-stroke headband will work anywhere. Any position of the triple shot belt. This action opens the aiming hanger with artificial white eyes. Refer to the auxiliary aiming function of the Dominator. After the aiming hanger is turned on, when the user uses firearms, bows and arrows or other throwing weapons, the field of view will automatically a sighting sight appears, and the sight will move according to the movement of the user's aiming position. This change tells the user where the position they are aiming at will fall after the shot. .00. Mark took Fury and the 2 to the outdoors. Fury couldn't wait to take out the pistol from the windbreaker and fired 3 shots at the 3 leaves falling in the distance. In the past, even if his marksmanship was good, Fury wouldn't have the confidence to hit the leaves falling in the wind, let alone hit 3 in a row. However, the aiming hanger with artificial white eyes is different. Fury only needs to adjust the design angle according to the position of the front sight. For a shooting veteran like him, such a simple firing is impossible to miss. Sure enough, with the sound of 3 gunshots, 3 leaves shattered. Needless to say, all 3 bullets hit the target. After the trial, all the inventions that Mark took out for his own trading today are also displayed. At the moment, Fury has only one thought in his mind: it seems that Shield must be bleeding this time. Close black lens bracket. Mark's 3 inventions, whether in terms of creativity, technical difficulty or practicality, can be said to be sincere works with perfect scores, which can be described as priceless. I quickly went through all the trading plans I can come up with in my mind. Fury found that he couldn't find an equivalent bargaining chip. I need a little time to consider this transaction. I will come to you again tomorrow. I believe it will happen. There must be the technology you want in the list I gave. Tony, you are still too young to understand this, so I want to take it as a video and leave it to you. This is what I built for you, and one day you will find that it represents everything, not just people's inventions, it represents my life's hard work, and this is the key to the future. I am limited by the technological level of my time, but I believe that one day you will solve this problem. When you do it, you will change the world. My greatest creation now and in the future there will always be only you. Quote. How is it? Is there any progress? Mark walked in from the door and asked. The one-eyed dragon is gone. Tony looked back at Mark. Go, what should I use to complete the deal with me when I go back and have a headache? What are you looking at? My father Howard, the images and notes left to me. Nick Fury said that there may be hidden the key to the super energy that Howard imagined. However, I have seen notes and images, or other things he left behind, but I still don't have any clues about super energy. Quote. Tony rubbed his temples a little frustrated. He wanted to solve this palladium poisoning, and solve this super energy, because this was what his father Howard Stark expected of him. In Tony's memory, Howard never expressed any expectations of himself, nor did he have any praise for himself, but when he heard Howard said he was his greatest creation, he really wanted to work hard. The proof of this. But now, he is very disappointed with his performance. Among the things Howard left behind, he didn't even find any cobweb horse trails about changing the world or super energy. Can you let me take a look? Seeing Tony's appearance, Mark still decided to give him some hints. You are free, I have given up, and I can't find any hidden meaning in the images he left. Tony took the remote controlled the video to rewind, and played another video for Mark. The video was not long, and Tony appeared in his childhood, which made Mark feel very pleasantly surprised and interesting. Soon, when the video was over, Mark turned his head to look at Tony. Could there be no hidden meaning at all? What do you mean? Tony asked curiously after listening. It means literally, this is what I built for you, it represents my life's hard work, this is the key to the future. Will it be as mentioned in the film, the model of the future city as the gateway to the key to the future, it is the key to complete super energy. Quote exclamation mark quote. Hearing Mark's words, Tony was like a divine enlightenment, and the whole person suddenly became energetic. Maybe Howard said it literally, that he was trapped by his mindset, and his thinking was too complicated. You are such a genius, Mark. Tony was so excited that he wrapped his arms around Mark's neck and ravaged his head frantically. Mark angrily opened Tony's guilty hand. I am a genius, I definitely know it, and I still use you. But the model of the city of the future is always in your office, and I didn't include it in the electronic library. It's okay, I will come to the company office to get it back tomorrow morning. Don't forget to bring some gifts to Sister Pepper and care about her. You haven't visited her for several days. The company has just returned to stability. In addition, the demand for orders from my side is very high. Little things need her to worry about. Mark reminded from the side. Don't worry, don't you worry about me doing things. Tony said confidently. It's because of you that I don't want to worry about doing things. Mark shook his head helplessly. Hey Pepper, are you free now? Tony pushed in, holding a box of strawberries in his hands. You only have 30 seconds. I am very busy today. Pepper said tiredly. Well, that's it. I came here today to say to you, I don't know how to describe it. Do you know how short it is in humans? I have never had a chance to express it. I have only recently realized this. I just want to say, what I want to say is. If Mark were here now, he would definitely give Tony a head around, confessing that he couldn't even make sense of words. Let me interrupt you first. If you're hesitating like this, I'm going to hit you on the head with something. Apparently Pepper and Mark see the same thing. I'm working hard to run a company these days. Do you know how difficult it is? Everyone is expecting you to be an Iron Man, but you disappeared without a trace. I'm trying to do what you should do. Did you bring this strawberry to me? Did you know that I am allergic to only one thing in the world, and that is strawberry? Quote. If Mark knew about it now, then he would have another reason to squeeze Tony. Even if he doesn't even know what to booze the person he likes, it's just useless. Even if it weren't because he was rich enough, maybe Tony would be a virgin for the rest of his life. This is progress, Pepper. As little as I know you are related to Strawberry. Now, please disappear from me. Pepper said angrily. Okay, I take the model of the future city and leave. Quote exclamation mark quote. Pepper glared at Tony. So you just came to see me by the way. Your real purpose is to take the model away. Tony really didn't dare to speak anymore, and quickly got up, grabbed the door and walked out. I will ask the guard to take it down for me. Jarvis, help me scan this model and make a digital model. I need an operable holographic projection screen. In the underground garage, Tony had already assembled the model he had brought back in his favorite experimental site. Zir, as Jarvis manipulated the holographic scanner to start scanning, a blue halo covered the entire model. Jarvis, the model of the Stark Industry Fair in 1974 has been scanned. It looks a bit like an atom, Mark prompts without losing the opportunity to the side. Yes, and the nucleus is here. Tony adjusted the azimuth and angle of the entire holographic image, and pointed his finger at the Earth model at the center. Enlarge the globe in the center, remove the aisles and discard them all. Remove the landscape, and remove all bushes, trees, parking lots, exits, and entrances. Jarvis, sir, what effect do you want to achieve? I'm trying to complete the super energy in my father's mouth. This model hides a new element atomic structure he discovered in that era. Jarvis, using the pavilion as a structure to form protons and neutrons. Success. Looking at the atomic structure model that has been formed through adjustment, Mark knows that the new elements needed for the complete arc reactor have been successfully found. You have been dead for 20 years and you still have to teach me. The expression on Tony's face looked like a smile instead of a smile, which looked very weird. Perhaps it was affected by the weird father-son relationship between Tony and Howard, but Mark could feel Tony's heart. Joy, this is the joy he exudes after fulfilling Howard's expectations of him. Jarvis, congratulations, sir. After comparison, the new element you found should be able to replace palladium. Unfortunately, it cannot be synthesized at this time. Mark shook his head. Jarvis, it's been so long since I equipped you with the emotional perception system, you still haven't learned a truth for the Stark family, nothing is impossible. Well said, brat. Ready for a major renovation, it's time to sweat a little. Tony flexed his hands, ready to do a big job. But before he could do anything, Mark stopped him. Father, have you forgotten what Grandpa said in the movie? Science and technology are the primary productive forces. I saw Mark took out a pair of glasses-like, but no lens-like frames from his pocket and brought it to his head. After that, the same noise began to reverberate throughout the villa. Squeak, squeak, squeak. Under Mark's control, countless miniature magnetic axis robots flocked to his side, surrounding him like a worker swarming the queen. Now you can start. With the help of Mark, the luxurious villas that were originally good end can now become like sewer corridors under the ground. There are ugly holes in the ground on the wall, and there are metal pipes extending out of them. The cables scattered on the ground are like a strange snake, ferocious and twisted. The huge amounts of movement also attracted the attention of Phil Coulson, who was left by Fury to supervise Tony's completion of the new elements. Hey, Tony and Mark, what are you doing? Oh, I have successfully found the new element, and I am now preparing to make it. By the way, I didn't see you when I went out today. Phil Coulson, have you been out? Forget it, you have succeeded now. That's it, I went out for a while. I came back today to say goodbye to you. I have a new mission to be transferred. I'm going to New Mexico next. Secret mission? Mark asked with interest, because he knew that Phil Coulson was going to New Mexico, which meant that Thor and his hammer had descended on the Earth, a living alien with a super strong body and long lifespan. Mark is very interested in this research. Not to mention there is a magic hammer made of a whole Death Star core in the wood of the World Tree. Almost, but the director said, if you agree, you can use this as a bargaining chip to take you there, because he really can't find anything in S.H.I.E.L.D. that can satisfy this transaction. The mysterious phenomenon in New Mexico must have huge amounts of research value for you. Quote. Deal. Fury was simply dozing off and gave the pillow. Mark agreed without hesitation. Being able to study Thor and its hammer, is there anything better to satisfy your curiosity? And use an unknown opportunity to exchange for 3 inventions that have proven their value. This business seems to be at a loss, but you must know that this transaction is based on S.H.I.E.L.D.'s exchange of their knowledge for the purchase right of Mark's technology. At that time, you will still have to pay for it and deliver it with the other. Once you purchase the dormant capsule, then Yuan constantly sells the nutrient solution every year and Mark makes a lot of money. Seeing Mark's refreshment, Phil Coulson did not immediately agree. Instead, he was afraid that Mark would suffer. He persuaded him, "You don't think about it anymore. You still don't know what mysterious phenomenon is happening there. Is it worth it? It's not clear that you are losing money in doing this business." Seeing Phil Coulson's performance, Mark nodded secretly. No wonder Phil Coulson's death can be the glue that unites the Avengers. This man does have such charm. Don't worry about that. I have never suffered a loss in business. You can wait a while, and when I help Tony complete the new elements, I will set off with you. Mark, I will go over and place the prism in a while, you help me pay attention to the angle here. No problem. How about it? Is there any deviation? Tony asked as he stretched out his hand to debug. Okay, it's perfect, then it's time to witness the miracle. JARVIS, start the prism accelerator. JARVIS. Sir, the power is turned on, the graphene superconductor coil is activated, and the high-energy laser is activated, which is close to the highest energy. Mark, control your little robot and listen to my instructions to turn the valve and adjust the prism angle. I'm ready. Mark thought together. The miniature robot has become a big hand, holding the valve that controls the angle. It's now, turn to the past, aim at the core of the element. Zir, Mark controls the giant hand to rotate the prism, and the laser beam refracted, splitting everything that goes by, without mercy. With the help of micro-robots and other help, Mark moved quickly and quickly. The angle of the prism was in place. The laser directly hits the core of the element, bombarding it with an ultra-high energy flow, and the new element is formed and stabilized. Success. Looking at the element core that can emit blue light on its own, Mark knew that the experiment was successfully completed. It's not that difficult, Tony said triumphantly. Don't worry, quickly put it into the arc reactor and have a try. What is the energy conversion rate and loss rate? Mark reminded. Yeah, Tony nodded and went to the experimental device, carefully removing the new element with tweezers. Congratulations, sir, you created a new element. JARVIS's voice sounded at this time. Tony tiptoedly put the new element core into the pre-prepared arc reactor. As soon as he touched it, the entire reactor actually produced a violent reaction. From the strong light released from it, it can be seen that the new element reacted to the entire reaction. The catalytic effect of the furnace's cold nuclear fusion process is more efficient than that of palladium. Sir, the reactor has successfully accepted the updated core, and I have started the testing process. It seems that things are going smoothly. In this case, I will go to New Mexico with Phil Coulson to see the mysterious anti-natural phenomenon. Don't forget to drive in your cool sports car, Tony reminded Mark. Don't worry, even if I don't have a horizontal cannon, I still have a lot of equipment, but since you reminded me, I'll take the horizontal cannon. I'll take Phil Coulson to experience what it is like to sit in the shapeshifting King Kong. What does it feel? Phil Coulson smiled brightly and said, please take me to experience it. Mark's invention is really convenient. Tony, who was alone in the villa, picked up the miniature magnetic axis robot controller left by Mark and directed them to clean up the devastated house. Did you see the little dumb? If you are so clumsy, it will be replaced. Don't put the removed pipe there, I just said it. Sir, there is an incoming call with an unshown number. Connect me, Phil Coulson, you have already arrived in New Mexico. Tony instinctively thought it was a call from Phil Coulson, but on the other end of the phone came a familiar and unexpected voice. Ivan Vanke. Tony, how are you? Haha, I doubled the speed. What, Ivan Vanke? You told me to double the speed to create more energy, very good suggestion. Your voice sounds like a good time in prison. JARVIS. Tracking calls. JARVIS. Received, sir. Listen, Tony. Stark's family history is about to be rewritten. For the crime your father committed against my family 40 years ago, I will retaliate in 40 minutes. I hope you are ready. Ivan Vanke hung up after speaking. Mr. The other party hung up the phone and the tracking failed. Is Hanmer Industries another show at the Stark Expo today? Yes, sir. Miss Pepper has approved their application. How about the testing of the new reactor? Still in progress. Then you have to test in another way, such as actual test. After that, Tony took off the new element reactor that was still under test and replaced the old one. Just test it like this. But sir, we are not sure yet. I don't want to listen. Tony interrupted Jarvis's dissuasion. Help me replace the newly designed Mark No. 6 battle suit. Stark Expo, Main Hall. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening everyone. I am the protagonist of tonight, Justin Hammer. In the background music of the venue, Justin Hammer danced strange dance steps proudly. For a long time, our country has allowed brave warriors to take risks. Until then, Iron Man appeared. We thought that no one would lose their lives, but it was a pity that he refused to disclose his advanced technology. This is unfair and a pity. But that is still a great invention. But today, I will introduce you to the new face of the military, the Hanmer Steel Soldier. Quote. Gia, the show begins. Are you ready? Tony, Ivan Vanke, who had been watching the show, let out a gloomy sneer in front of the screen. This is a revolutionary technology that can greatly reduce the chance of soldiers going to the battlefield and dying on the front line. Definitely, we still need soldiers who can go to the battlefield. Next, I am honored to show you the prototype of the all-round combat armor and its driver, James Rhodes. Quote. As Justin Hammer gave a passionate speech on stage, Rhodes, who was waiting backstage, seemed to be in trouble. It's time for you to take the stage, Lieutenant Colonel. Behave well, tonight is a good opportunity for you to get promoted and make a fortune. I understand, sir, but we may have a little trouble now, Rhodes said embarrassedly. What's the trouble? The officer asked puzzled. I'm completely out of control now. Just after Rhodes' words were finished, the warm applause had passed from the front of the stage to the back of the scene, and the War Machine battle suit transformed by Mark No. 2 brought Rod with him step by step. Up the stage. Clang. At the same time, Tony, who hurriedly replaced the new element reactor and the Mark 6 battle suit, finally came to the scene in a hurry. Rhodes, listen, you have to believe me for the next 5 minutes. I suspect that Hanmer Industries and the Ivan Vanke who attacked me in Monaco are cooperating. All the people here are in danger. We have to save them. Wait, Tony, although I don't want to listen to your long explanation, but I want to say that I believe you because I have already targeted. Goal? What goal? Tony asked a little dazedly. The target is you, Tony. Rod said awkwardly. I lost control of the battle suit. Jarvis, help me hack into Rhodes' battle suit, I need to seize control. Sir, the software in the battle suit was overridden by someone, and I was blocked by the other party's server. It must have been passive when the battle suit was sent to Hanmer Industries for upgrade. It seems that you were right. Tony, Hanmer and Ivan Vanke are secretly cooperating. What are you talking about? You actually sent my greatest work of Tony Stark to a third-rate arms dealer for transformation. Who told Stark Industries to shut down the weapons department? Osborn was just kicked out of the supplier list by the military. The only thing we can find is Hanmer Industries. I'm speechless for what you said. Sir, I don't want to interrupt the conversation between you, but I want to remind you that the Hanmer Steel Warriors on the stage have also been tampered with the control program, and now the muzzles of all weapons have been locked on you. Tony, you have to lead them away, and you can't let them open fire in the crowded main venue. Rod yelled anxiously. Relax, Rhodes, everything is under my control. Jarvis, help me contact Dubai for help, seize control of Rhodes' battle suit, and then lock all the Steel Warriors. We should show off our muscles too. Received, sir. Dubai has turned on hardware acceleration in the background, and it is expected that there will be 5 seconds to regain control of the battle suit. The enemy's targets are all locked. Do you turn on destructive strike? Definitely. What are you waiting for? The floating cannon is fully powered, except for the necessary number of energy barriers to open the energy barrier to protect the auditorium, and the rest to give me full firepower. Tony gave an order, and it looked different from the previous battle suit. The sharp edges and corners of Mark 6's whole body were all separated from the surface of the battle suit, like a flying shuttle flying beside Tony. Expand radially. Several of them broke away from the main unit and flew to the front of the auditorium, forming a huge amounts of energy barrier, which strictly protects the entire auditorium. At the other end, the remaining floating cannons that had locked all the Steel Warriors were also ready, and the energy gathered in the muzzle, emitting a breathtaking light. Shoo, shoo, shoo. Dozens of miniature floating cannons were fired at the target, and the energy beam penetrated the heads of all targeted Steel Warriors in a blink of an eye. Boom. All the steel warriors controlled by Ivan had not had time to fire one shot or one. That's it, cut, Tony said with disdain, and it was really cool in his heart. This floating gun is really cool to use, but it is much cooler than the machine gun shells he had equipped before. It is worthwhile that he spent a lot of money and signed many unequal treaties were obtained, and the technical drawings of the floating gun were obtained from Mark. At the moment when the treaty was signed, Tony felt that his own morals had faded away, but now he just wanted to say, "It's so fragrant." Tony's side, Rod, who had witnessed the whole process, also surprised Roar and said, "That's it. You Hanmer Industry is also our military designated drinking milk." Wrong, you went to the wrong set, you are the designated weapon supplier. The robot produced this way can be solved so easily, this level is too bad. You were right, Tony. We really shouldn't send the battle suit to a third-rate manufacturer like Hanmer Industries for refitting. The level and quality are too inferior, alas. Rod sighed regretfully. Roar will be wronged if Justin Hammer hears it, not because he is too weak, but someone is too strong. Then Rod tentatively asked, "Can you help me build this cool weapon on your body?" Tony opened his mask and smiled weirdly. "Unless your military is willing to invest 1/10 of the annual military expenditure into the transformation of your battle suit, otherwise you don't want to take out anything from Mark." "Well, you enviable rich people, poverty keeps me behind," Rod said helplessly. "Sir, Dubai sent a message that the control of the battle suit has been regained, and it also upgraded the anti-intrusion system and combat assistance system of the battle suit by the way, and at the same time increased the authorization level." "Very well, then it's time for the counterattack, Rod." Tony gave Rod a look. Rod understood, and walked to the edge of the stage before Justin Hammer, who had been paralyzed by the sudden change, grabbed his collar and lifted it up. "Tell me, is it you or Ivan Vanki?" "No, it's not me, it's the ungrateful guy Ivan." "Where is he?" "In my company, I have people guarding him." Hammer didn't dare to hide anything, and told Rhodes everything he knew. "According to the current situation, your 2 guards seem to have returned to God's embrace. As for you, wait here for the New York police to take them into custody." After speaking, regardless of Hammer's struggle, he tied him up. It was handed over to the security personnel at the scene. "Let's go, Rod, to Hanmer Industries." "Sir, I don't think you need to go to Hanmer Industries. According to threat detection, there is a miniature flight machine with a very high energy index, which is approaching here at an alarming speed. After analysis, this is probably Ivan Vanki. I suggest that before he arrives, stop him in no man's land to avoid implicating innocent people." Quote, "How come the enemy can always be one step faster than me?" Tony vomited helplessly. "By the way, is this guy on your chest the new arc reactor?" "You and Mark succeeded." Rod suddenly noticed that Tony's chest had shifted the inverted triangular reactor window, and asked in surprise. "Don't worry, the danger is relieved. I'm great now, and the new arc reactor is also great. The data just got show that the energy output has been significantly improved, and the vital signs are also very stable. Relying on Mark's nourishment hibernation chamber is hanged," Tony said to Rod with a thumbs up in his right hand. "What danger is relieved? What do you mean by hanging? Did you have life in danger before?" Tony didn't notice. All of this was heard by Pepper, who was rushing to his side from the audience. "Ah, nothing will happen again." Tony turned around stiffly and explained. "Why didn't you tell me?" Pepper continued to ask. "Tony, don't be angry with Pepper, I was meant to tell you, but I didn't find a good time. Now I will solve the old man, and I will formally explain and apologize to you." "Pepper, I'm very angry, except for the one you can't coax, so you must come back safely." "Tony, don't worry, I am invincible with Mark's Phil money upgrade." "Rod, you are here to protect Pepper and evacuate the crowd." "I will solve Ivan Vanki." "Are you sure you can do it?" "I really don't want my help," Rod questioned. "Man, you can't say no, let's go." Whoosh. After speaking, Tony flew out of the exhibition hall, and the valuable floating cannon followed him. "Sir, the target is still 400 meters away from you. The masses on the ground in this area have been evacuated, and you can safely shoot down the target. JARVIS, lock him and let all the floating cannons be dispatched. I will destroy them before he can cause more damage. Mr. Receiver, the target has been locked, do you want to fire?" With full force. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Behind Tony, the floating cannon that had followed him closely and kept the relative position, accelerated one after another and surpassed him, rushing towards Ivan Vanki quickly. What's that? Ivan, who was looking at Tony wearing a battle suit not far away, was excitedly preparing to kill, looking at the tiny light spots that suddenly appeared next to him, compared to his huge battle armor. It's really trivial. But soon he would know these trivial and terrifying places, and before Ivan could react, the muzzle of the dozens of floating guns that had besieged him instantly brightened. Shoo, shoo, shoo. Ivan Vanki was too late to regret his underestimation, and even too late to let out a scream. With the loud noise of boom, only a brilliant flame was left in the sky. A spike, an absolute spike. Tony had expected this result as early as possible. He still clearly remembers that after opening the world of acceleration, he can still only be surrounded by floating guns to intercept helpless despair. Now he believes that Ivan's feelings are the same, the difference is that he is a winner and a loser. He even lost his life. However, before Tony breathed a sigh of relief, Jarvis rang an emergency alert in his ear. Sir, I just detected that the opponent's battle suit automatically launched a radio signal before it exploded. After analysis, it was self-destructive. Signal, the target may be the Iron Warrior who has lost the ability of action in the main venue. Where is Pepper? Where is Pepper? Did Rod take her away from the main venue? Hearing the warning from Jarvis, Tony nervously asked Pepper about his situation. 0. Sir, please rest assured, although Mr. Rod is not with Miss Pepper because he is helping the police to evacuate the crowd, I have sent a signal to Nini, who is with Ms. Pepper, and Nini has taken Ms. Pepper to a safe place. Quote. Hearing the news of Pepper's safety, Tony let go of his heart. Is there a way to crack the self-destruction program? Once these steel warriors explode at the Stark Expo, then this matter will definitely be on the front page of tomorrow, and Pepper, as the company's executive, will probably have a big head for this. If it is in a normal state, definitely can't keep up, but if you turn on the acceleration world, then you should have enough time to crack the self-destruct program set by the other party when your brain is overclocked. Then what are you waiting for? Start the world of acceleration. Link start. Jarvis. Are you still there? After entering the acceleration world, Tony looked at the frozen world around him, and Roar called. Sir, I am here. Line up the opponent's program and defense nodes, and I'm about to start working. Okay, sir. May I ask what else can I help you? Help me think about it. How should I explain to Pepper? I feel like I've screwed up everything. Gentlemen, what? I'm busy. I'm just an artificial intelligence. Why do you embarrass me so much? Jarvis even said a little aggrieved. How do I feel that you are more like a person than I am? How long will it take to go outside? Milliseconds have passed. The danger is lifted, and the exit speeds up. Sir, are you sure you don't think about how to explain to Miss Pepper in the accelerated state? A few more seconds, I think it should be enough. Whoosh. On a straight wasteland road, a cool silver snow Frank Corvette Stingray is galloping past at a very high speed, like a silver lightning, cutting through this desolate and quiet land. How do you feel, Phil Coulson? Do you need to turn on the autopilot? In the co-pilot, Mark leaned back in his seat leisurely, enjoying the picturesque scenery around him. As a person who has been living in a big city, he can feel the beauty of this uninhabited nature. No, Mark, the power and suspension for running horizontally are really great. The 800 horsepower electric engine that uses the arc reactor as the energy source makes the entire acceleration process smooth and without frustration, but the strong feeling of pushing back it can make a person's adrenaline soar, and I can't stop it. At the moment, Phil Coulson sits in the driver's seat like a boy who has just gotten a new toy, no longer the calm, gentleman image of an elegant and easy-going gentleman. Ha ha ha, that's definitely. In order to avoid the suspension and shock absorber problems that all sports cars have, I deliberately adopted a graphene superconducting magnetic levitation structure to ensure that you will not feel any bumps even when you run the stairs. If you want me to say that you really like it, you can go back and suggest to your chief executive to purchase dozens of official vehicles with me. Although there is no shape-shifting function, the experience and performance are all there. While speaking, Mark has the same old problems again, and he starts to remember the USD in the shield vault. Mark, you have almost emptied our funds this year, so don't talk about it anymore. There is a service area in front. Let's go in and buy some water. How about having dinner solved by the way? Phil Coulson asked Mark next to him. Asked. That's all there is. I will definitely miss the destination tonight. Mark is not very picky about what he eats. It's definitely better to have something delicious, and he can do it if he doesn't. Welcome. Entering the convenience store in the service area, the staff in front of the cash register completed the welcome speech with a blank expression. Mark and Phil Coulson don't care either. After staying in such inaccessible places for a long time, people's personalities will inevitably become weird. The two of them could bear even Tony, who had a more weird character, and didn't care about it. Mark took a basket and started filling it with some distilled water and drinks. Phil Coulson came to the food shelf and suffered from a choice disorder. Facing the two flavors of milk and chocolate donuts, Phil Coulson has a hard time making a choice. Just when he was still struggling, click. The sound of a familiar gun being loaded caught his attention. Raise your hand, don't move. If you move it, I will blow your head. Phil Coulson looked up in the reflector above and saw two male robbers dressed in black. One was holding a gun at the clerk at the cashier, and the other was pointing a gun at Mark in front of the beverage cabinet. Who else is here? Whose is the sports car outside? The robber who pointed the gun at the cashier clerk looked at the clerk with a fierce look, and asked loudly. At the moment, the female clerk pointed at by the gun was too scared to speak out. The car belongs to me. Upon seeing this, Mark confessed directly to avoid the robbers from hurting the clerk because of his excitement. Yours. You don't seem to be 16 years old, how do you drive? The robber obviously didn't believe Mark's words. What you said, do you know what rich willfulness is? Poverty limits your imagination, and the happiness of rich people is beyond your imagination. You. In the face of Mark's arrogant speech, the two robbers were so angry that they wanted to slam his rifle butts in his face. But before the two of them put their thoughts into action, they were startled by the sound coming from behind them. Don't listen to the kid's nonsense, the car belongs to me. To be precise, the car is indeed his, but I drove it over. Behind the food shelf, Phil Coulson holding two flavored donuts in his hand, from behind the shelf came out. The two robbers who were frightened in a cold sweat by Phil Coulson's sudden vocalization hurriedly turned their heads and pointed their guns at him. After all, from the voice, it can be judged that Phil Coulson is a mature man, but it is harder than the women and children in front of him. Deal with some. But if this idea is let Phil Coulson know, he will definitely laugh at the two people who are still too young. Don't you know that the elderly, women and children in the world are the most unprovoking existence? What's more, Mark is still a rich kid with a high-tech body. Listen, put your hand on your head and throw the key. Ah, recognition, there is an electronic ignition in the car, and my car is not the same. I can still spit out. Facing Mark's ridicule again, the two robbers didn't feel annoyed this time. They looked directly at Mark and said, "So you are the key. I will cut off your fingers one by one in a while, I don't believe us. Brothers can't drive this car today. And you, get out the front of the cash register." Quote. Hey, buddy. At this time, Phil Coulson spoke again. From the performance of the two men, he already knew that they were by no means habitual criminals with superb criminal tactics. At most, they were accustomed to petty thefts. A temporary robbery. I still have a gun here. You will probably need it. Put it down. Hurry up. Put it down. Hearing the word gun, both of them were dead, and they quickly turned around and pointed the gun at Phil Coulson and threatened. No problem. I don't want to cause any trouble, Phil Coulson said with a simple and honest look. Then you throw the gun over now. I don't think I should risk throwing the gun at you. What do you think I slide over to you? The robber thought for a while and returned. Okay, slip the gun under my feet and don't do stupid things. But then someone behind them spoke again. It was Mark, and in the same arrogant tone, "Hey, you two poor ghosts, look at the shoes on my feet." Hearing Mark's sarcasm, the two of them unconsciously looked back at Mark's feet. They were a pair of red and white sneakers with a small circular protrusion on the outside of the upper foot enhancement shoes, plus the magical suit that can help me perfectly control my posture. I feel like trying to become a drum washing machine today. When the two robbers heard Mark's inexplicable speech, Their minds were confused, but before they could understand, a basket of drinks and distilled water had already clashed on them with lightning speed. Boom, bang, sorry for making a mess here, but don't worry, I can afford it. Nice job, Mark, it seems that I don't need to do it anymore. Then he handed the 2 flavored donuts to the clerk. I still can't decide which one to choose, please check out together. Looking at the 2 robbers on the ground who had been stunned by a drink, the female clerk asked, how should I explain to the police? Tell them, Detective Conan is not for nothing. After speaking, Mark and Phil Coulson turned and left, continuing to drive the car towards the destination. Avengers Preliminary Report. In a factory independent of the suburbs, Tony sat alone in front of a desk. After doing nothing, he picked up the report on the desk. Peeking is not a good habit, Tony. Nick Fury, who entered here somehow, reached out and pressed Tony's restless little hand. And I don't want you to see it. I'm not sure if it's related to you. Then, he picked up another report on the desktop. But this one is from Agent Romanov. You can take a good look at your assessment. Personality analysis. Tony opened the first page of the result file and read, Tony Stark is a narcissist. I agree with this point. Although his own achievements have been surpassed by his own children, but have been refusing to admit it, arrogant and can't afford to lose. Hey, I just make full use of the resources around me. Mark's ability is inherited from me. Don't worry, keep reading. Fury raised an eyebrow and motioned. Comprehensive evaluation. As long as Mark Stark is on the sidelines, you can accept Tony Stark as a member of the Avengers. There is no reason, how can you put Mark's position above me? In fact, we have reached 2 successful deals with Mark. Although we have paid some price, it has proved to have brought more benefits to S.H.I.E.L.D. Just like this wig on my head, this is Mark personally. A customized gift for me, who knows that it is actually my second pair of eyes. Therefore, before Mark can decide whether to join the Avengers as an adult, you can only serve as an advisor to our S.H.I.E.L.D. Quote. Tony shook his head and stood up from the chair, sorry, you can't afford me. He was queued behind Mark. Tony was about to explode in his heart. However, there is a character in his heart that makes him angry that needs revenge. Thinking of this person, Tony decided to make a slight concession this time, but I am willing to use my contract fee to ask you to help me a little busy. The official wants to commend Roder and me for our performance in this event. We need an award-giving guest. I hope it will be Congressman Stern. We will find a way to make a deal. Daddy, he has become a consultant in your bureau. On the highway, Mark, who was sitting in a sports car, was a little surprised when he heard the news. Why find a narcissist who is arrogant and has a particularly bad temper? Do you really say that your father is really good? How do you say Tony's father, Mr. Howard Stark, is also our veteran of S.H.I.E.L.D.? Tony's joining S.H.I.E.L.D. as a consultant is also a logical thing, and it is good for both parties. S.H.I.E.L.D. can help Tony deal with official problems. If there are people who are troublemakers like Senator Stern in the future, we can help Tony stop them. The connections, wealth and wisdom of Tony originally can also provide convenience and help for S.H.I.E.L.D. This is a win-win choice. Quote. It really makes sense to hear you say that. After all, the big tree is good for shelter from the cold, but if there is a snake nest on this tree, it will be a bit dangerous. What are you talking about? Phil Coulson was confused. It's okay. Just treat me like nonsense. It seems that the front is our destination. Through the front windshield, Mark saw a huge amounts of depression not far away, and there were many people and people around. Vehicles are establishing protection measures for them. In general, such a depression should be called a crater, but if Thor and his hammer fell from the domain of the pit, it may be more appropriate to call it a crater. Yes, the front is our destination for this trip. As he said, Phil Coulson took off the S.H.I.E.L.D. badge from the collar and began to contact the director. This badge is based on the Conan Detective Team badge as the prototype, the batch of communication badges Mark supplied to S.H.I.E.L.D. Sir, we found it. Mark, let me introduce to you, this is our super marksman from S.H.I.E.L.D., the 7th level agent Clint Barton, and he will be the general person in charge of the security work here during the next few days. Mark looked at another familiar and unfamiliar character in front of him with some excitement, and stretched out his hand. Hello, Mark Stark. Barton did not refuse, holding Mark's outstretched hand and replied, Hello, Clint Barton, everyone likes to call me Hawkeye, you can also call me Roar like that. In addition, your company provides the graphene bowstring is of great quality, and I still like it. Thank you, can you take us over to see it? I've been excited about it all day and night. Definitely, that thing was first discovered by a local pickup driver, and our military satellites also took photos of it falling from outer space. There was also a mysterious thing that came down with it. We were a few kilometers away from here. Its traces were found, and the wheel marks on the ground showed that it was taken away by others. And this thing, from the moment it was discovered, it is known that no one or a machine can lift it up, so we have caught up with it. If I am not mistaken, this is a hammer. Have you tried to analyze the pattern above? In the crater, Barton brought Phil Coulson and Mark to the front of the mysterious object, already knowing what it was. What kind of stuff? Mark immediately began to guide S.H.I.E.L.D.'s research direction. Not yet. In fact, we have just arrived here. Just 10 minutes ago, this was a place where the local strong men tried their strength and held a barbecue party. You are a nice person, at least not as lacking in sense of humor as it seems. Magneto, put on your equipment. Following Mark's command to the smartwatch on his wrist, the tail box of the horizontal gun car stopped not far away suddenly opened automatically. One of the metal boxes of the computer case file size suddenly rose from the top. The propeller, and then took off directly to Mark. After the metal box landed at Mark's feet, the door of the box automatically popped open, and the familiar modular magnetic axis robot Magneto popped out of it. I saw that the magnetic axis of its original head accessory was disconnected, and it had a holographic scan. The new parts of the lens were ejected from the metal box, and were accurately connected to Magneto's body by the magnetic force. The transformed Magneto began to scan the hammer in the crater in all directions. After the scan, the parts were replaced with holographic projection accessories, and the scanned model was projected in front of Mark. That's why I like to take it out. It can perfectly implement multiple functions. What a clever little guy. Dabai, have you received the information I just sent to the server? I have received it, Master. Dabai's electronic expression appeared on Mark's smartwatch and responded to his questions. Connect to the search engine. I want to know the pattern on the model. What is the source and meaning? Understand the search engine is connected, and the pattern is being compared. The following is the comparison result. According to available information, the pattern engraved on the model is an ancient text called the rune alphabet. In Germanic mythology, in order to seek higher wisdom, the father of god Odin hung himself from a tree for 9 days and 9 nights, thinking about the mysteries of the universe. When he came down from the world tree, he realized Luin's secret. The ancients believed that the Luin text contained magical powers, through unique combinations to form magic amulet, and use it to perform Luin magic. According to the comparison of the original rune alphabet handed down in ancient times, the pattern is translated into a modern language and translated as Mjolnir, which represents the meaning of shattered. On the side of the model, there is a Luin text that seems to have just been inscribed. The translated meaning is, anyone who can lift this hammer, if Ta is worth having, can get the same ability as Thor. Quote, Odin, Thor, are we listening to bedtime stories in broad daylight? Don't tell me this thing on the ground is Mjolnir. Barton expressed his doubts after hearing the information from Dabai. Don't rush to the conclusion, Hawkeye. I don't know if you have heard the famous saying, the end of science is theology. If it is said that as early as BC, an alien civilization had mastered the ability of interstellar travel, and it was a coincidence. He visited the Earth, so in the eyes of the Earth people at that time, what was the difference between them and the gods? Mark's remarks also silenced the atmosphere in the crater, let alone thousands of years ago, even now that human beings have returned to the ancient times hundreds of years ago with today's high-tech products. People at that time were regarded as gods zero. At this moment, as staunch atheists and supporters of modern science, Barton and Phil Coulson have fallen into a crisis of worldview collapse. Definitely Mark has long been offended, not to mention that he has long known that the Marvel Universe is a magical world where all science is fundamentally unscientific. The fact that he is a traverser alone is enough to make people mentally broken. However, just at this moment, an agent came to report the news, which freed Barton and Phil Coulson from their self-doubt about the worldview. Sir, we have been able to find a clue to the other thing that was taken away. The wheel mark on the scene came from a private astronomical observation vehicle, and the owner was a famous doctor of astronomy, Erik Selvig. Assemble the staff and set off with me immediately. Phil Coulson, who was in charge of the scene, ordered immediately. Yes, sir. The messenger agent immediately began to summon vehicles and personnel after receiving the order. Bring me. Mark also asked to go with him. If he moves fast enough, he might be able to see Thor, who was demoted to the earth, and he will be pressed to the ground. I am very excited to take a few tubes of blood as research samples. Yes, as a revenge, you have a high degree of freedom and authority second only to me in New Mexico this time, but you must remember to follow my command throughout the action, don't act arbitrarily, you know. Phil Coulson reminded Mark solemnly. I see, hurry up, I can't wait. Chapter 91. Sir, that's the car. In a small town on the border of Old Bridge City, under the guidance of an agent, Mark saw the tracked vehicle. Wow, look at the modification of this car and the exquisite equipment on it. This person will definitely do a lot in the future. Do you want me to fund the research of Dr. Eric Sevig, Phil Coulson? Maybe he will take it in the future. When I get to the Nobel Prize, I will be on stage to thank me. Mark first saw the astronomical observation instrument and data collection device installed on the roof of the car, and he saw that the other party must have extraordinary knowledge and practical ability. I'm afraid to help you make a decision, but now we are going to search the car. If any damage or loss is caused, I think you can help us first, because then I will need to compensate the owner of the car. Agents, do it, remember to be careful. Mark didn't bring out his miniature magnetic axis robot when he went out this time, so he just stood on the side and watched SHIELD agents move things down one by one. Did they still carry out some scientific instruments? Comments, express appreciation and optimism about the producer. Hey, stop it, what is going on? Just as the work of the Aegis Transportation Company was in full swing, a man, 2 women and 3 people rushed in from outside. Phil Coulson, who had done a background check for a long time, recognized the lady who stopped them out loud, astronomer Jane Foster, who worked with Dr. Eric Selvig, and her friend and assistant Daisy by her side. Lewis, and that man is Dr. Eric Selvig, the owner of the car. Please stop, Miss Jane Foster, I'm SHIELD agent Phil Coulson. Facing a few people rushing in, Phil Coulson stepped forward to stop him. Does what you say has any meaning to me? You can't do this. This is illegal snatching of citizen property. Facing Phil Coulson's block, Jane didn't take it seriously, and rushed to him angrily to question. Jane. At this time, Eric, who was more experienced, immediately stepped forward to stop Jane, who was going to go crazy. Things seem to have become complicated now, don't intervene anymore. Eric had already seen that Phil Coulson was from a special agency under the government, and he didn't want Jane to ruin her great future because she angered the other party. Don't interfere. This is my life. We have put so much effort into this research. Now you want me to watch the other party take away the research data we have collected so hard to be indifferent. Thinking of this, Jane, her emotions became more agitated, and she could even see the violent veins on her neck. I think so too, Phil Coulson, your approach is indeed improper. You don't even have a search warrant. You dare to do such things in broad daylight. Is it a distortion of human nature or moral decay? Hearing the movement here, Mark also walked over. He wanted to see if Thor, who had been robbed of his supernatural power, stayed with Jane Foster. However, after seeing a few people clearly, Mark knew that his expectations had failed. It seems that Thor should be trying to regain his hammer, but then it will also be a good opportunity to take the blood and squeeze a few hairs for research sample. Oh, my goodness, are you Mark Stark? Daisy, who heard Mark's voice and looked at him, recognized this recent man in the first place. I'm a big fan of you. Quote. Oh, is it? Which product of my company do you like best? Mark asked with interest. I like them all, but I can't afford them. Daisy said embarrassingly. It doesn't matter, but we are investigating a security threat. These agents need to requisition the astronomical records and atmospheric data kept on your car. In order to apologize for our self-examination, I can fund your next research. You can also send you a family portrait of a set of Mark Research Center products. Look, you admit it, you are not asking for it, the so-called expropriation is actually stealing. Jane did not calm down because of the promise Mark made. These things are not killing them on Taobao. I can buy most of the equipment I assembled myself. Then I believe you can definitely reassemble it with the funds provided by Mark. Phil Coulson persuaded. I can definitely sue you for violating the rights granted to me by the Constitution. Jane said without mercy. Oh, calm down, this beautiful sister. 707. Don't look at Phil Coulson's middle-aged look like a bully. He is an executioner who cannibalizes people without spitting out bones. I am with him and their terrible Cyclops. Under threat, they were forcibly brought here to help. For your own safety, you should accept my terms and stop struggling. I promise you that after sorting and copying the data we need, I will return the things we took to Zhao without any damage. I swear in my name, Mark Stark. Quote. As a research madman, Mark can also appreciate Jane's current mood. I must be very annoyed when I forcibly took away the research results I have obtained so hard. The time and energy invested and devoted by oneself is not simply measurable by money. After listening to Mark's words, Jane finally calmed down. We are about to figure out something very remarkable, and everything I know about this phenomenon is in this mobile laboratory in my notes. I hope you can 100% guarantee that your promise will be fulfilled and protect my things. Thank you for your cooperation. Phil Coulson. What's wrong, Mark? I remember Barton mentioned earlier that there is a strange place a few kilometers away from the crater. Yes, but we didn't find anything there. We suspected that it was taken by Dr. Eric's car before, but the search just now did not find any trace. Take me to see. I think maybe I can find something out of the ordinary. In fact, since just now, Dubai has been continuously transmitting this data to Mark's smartwatch. According to the model data obtained by scanning Mjolnir, Dubai has been calling all the computing power in the server cluster for deduction. The rune charms that have been obtained are Smash Identification and Grant of Power. Smash gives Mjolnir an indestructible power, and Identification allows it to confirm that the user has sufficient qualifications. Bonus of Strength allows the user to gain the power increase stored in the core of Mjolnir. There are more like Thor's commonly used Thunder and Lightning and Infinite Weight after recognition failure. The quilt should be engraved in the deeper hammer body, but because of the outer Ulu metal the package cannot obtain information through holographic scanning. The task of Dubai is to study the 3 known rune charms and the ancient rune characters to determine whether a new rune can be generated to achieve other magical effects. In addition, Dubai was also working on another task at the same time, which was to try to explain the rune magic left on Mjolnir with modern scientific theories. For this task, progress is fairly smooth. If magic is compared to a form of scientific system, then in this system, magic is both the foundation and the core. As the energy that drives all magic, the nature of magic is no different from the light energy and electric energy used by humans. Thor's magic of summoning thunder and lightning through Mjolnir can also be regarded as the energy conversion that converts magic into electrical energy. This process is not essentially different from that of a generator that converts electrical energy by working on the rotor. As a traverser, Mark knows that in addition to the use of the Death Star core and the World Tree Wood, Mjolnir also adds a special material Ulu metal in order to better integrate the two materials. Ulu metal comes from Niederville, one of the 9 realms of Marvel. This metal is very difficult to forge. Only the forge masters of the Dwarf Kingdom can forge. This metal has considerable energy and can be given magic. Use it. The weapon that is made can communicate with the user's mind, and can also repair itself. If magic is the energy for the successful operation of magic, then Ulu metal is the medium for transmitting this energy. As a kind of energy that is extremely inactive despite its high energy level, Ulu metal, a medium that can transmit it, is indispensable. In this way, the whole process is clear, and the remaining rune magic inscription is equivalent to a human printed circuit on a circuit board, and the preset function has been completed. The magic power that can be transformed into various energies passes through a unique medium, flows through the magic talisman to obtain specific properties, and is finally released to complete the entire casting process. Compared to the Earth, only a small number of people with different abilities can enter Kamar Taj, a magical holy place for learning. Because of their excellent racial abilities, Asgard people are naturally more friendly to magic and can use magic easily. So if Mark wants to replicate magic in a scientific way, he has to face 3 problems. One is the source of magic power, but the medium for transmitting magic power, and the third is the magic talisman that is the final character of magic. Regarding the magic talisman, as long as sufficient samples are obtained, Mark is confident that he can analyze the rune talisman with different functions. Even if the sample is insufficient, relying on the existing 3 magic symbols, coupled with the continuous arrangement and combination of the virtual laboratory to speed up the entire analysis process, it is not a problem to spend more time. For this brand new research field, Mark is willing to devote his time and energy to it and continue to expand his knowledge boundary. As for the medium through which the magic power is transmitted, it's even less of a problem, because Mark knows that soon there will be a man in God's domain who will be full of tragedy throughout his life. As long as the problem of smelting is solved, SHIELD will conduct a PY transaction, and the material will be fully managed. The final magic problem is even simpler. As long as it is a kind of energy, it can be obtained through mutual transformation between energies. No matter how much loss there is in the intermediate process, you have the arc developed by your own father. There is no need to worry about the reactor technology. Along the way, Mark's time passed in such thinking and planning. When he regained his spirits again because of Phil Coulson's roar, they had already arrived before their destination. Seeing the mysterious lines looming on the ground due to the erosion of wind and sand, Mark immediately indulged in. Mark, who has mastered the rule of Lewin text in 10 minutes, has already read out the meaning of these lines as soon as he saw these lines: the shaky road to heaven. Bifrost in Norse mythology, it is the huge Bifrost that connects Asgard and Midgard, meaning, shaking road to heaven. When Mark saw the magic rune left after Bifrost transmitted Thor, the first thing he thought of was not to analyze this magic pattern. The first thing he thought of was the great physicist Albert Einstein's guess is correct. In his conjecture, there may be a narrow tunnel connecting 2 different time and space in the universe. This tunnel is called a wormhole or Einstein-Rosen bridge. And the wonderful conjectures he made in the last century need to be confirmed by magic that seems to have nothing to do with science today. Even if it has long been known that in the Marvel world, whether using Bifrost, Tesseract or Kamar-Taj's space magic, you can easily open the Einstein-Rosen bridge to connect 2 different time and space, but when Mark really sees it is enough after the Bifrost rune's magic pattern based on the theoretical basis, he truly determined that it was not the so-called inexplicable rule, but the scientific truth that 707 did exist. Magneto, scan it down and we have made a big discovery. Phil Coulson, it seems that this transaction is made by me again. Mark turned his head and smiled triumphantly at Phil Coulson beside him. Your smile tells me that we'd better send someone to protect this place as soon as possible. You really should do this. If SHIELD finds something in the end, then send me a thank you letter. Mark doesn't believe that SHIELD scientists can study anything useful. As long as you don't know the role of Ulu metal in it, then in scientific exploration, no matter what kind of research is carried out, the wrong beginning will inevitably lead to a failed ending. Having obtained the desired result this time, Mark returned to the fall point of Mjolnir with Phil Coulson with a pleasant surprise. The agents of SHIELD moved really fast, and in less than an hour and a half, they had already set up most of the main facilities around. At the moment, SHIELD scientists who had been rushed around Mjolnir were filled with various research equipment for testing and collecting all kinds of data. Sir, the signal from the reconnaissance satellite can hardly penetrate the clouds. Affected by this mysterious object, it is difficult for electronic equipment to operate normally. There is also a commercial aircraft about to fly over the sky, Southwest Airlines Flight 5434. Let the captain change the route like other flights. Receive. As soon as he arrived at the location of the crater where Mjolnir fell, Mark was amused by the group of SHIELD scientists. Seeing them carefully wearing protective suits and scanning it with various instruments, Mark couldn't help it. If you haven't even figured out the nature of an object, just start the so-called research rashly, as if discussing the cooking method of an object before it is clear whether it can be eaten or not, it will only add laughter to others. However, none of the scientists at SHIELD showed any dissatisfaction with Mark's sarcasm. Because I don't mention Mark's performance in front of the public these days, and the cross-age products he released, just on the spot, these scientists knew that the power system of the Sky Mothership he developed for SHIELD was enough to convince them. So these scientists were not only not angry, but some even took the initiative to ask, Mr. Mark, I don't know if we did something wrong and made you laugh. Please feel free to give us advice so that we can correct it. Mark doesn't hide himself. He knows that human progress is based on the sharing of knowledge. Therefore, the spread of knowledge has always been a success. If Mark refuses, it must be that the content of the other party's inquiry is too valuable and the price is too high. Not enough. In one sentence, you have to add money. However, if only some analysis and ideas are shared, Mark is not so mad. So Mark told the SHIELD scientists what he said to Barton and Phil Coulson in the morning. At the beginning, they felt that Mark's speculation was nothing but nonsense. After hearing the final analysis, they really developed some recognition in their hearts like Barton and Phil Coulson. At the same time, they have always believed in the worldview. Was shaken. Well, everyone, whether you believe it or not, this is just my family's words. There is no evidence to support my conjecture. It's not early anymore. Let's go to dinner first. After all, do research. The foundation that supports us. Everyone nodded, ready to change into protective clothing, and return to work after dinner. But at this moment, the alarm of this temporary base rang, and the surrounding agents were also rushing out, as if there was something to be done. It seems that it should be my treasure boy here. Mark raised his brows and the corners of his mouth were slightly tilted. Sir, something seems to be approaching the west fence. In front of the monitoring station, an agent pointed his finger at the screen on the monitor and said. With the satellite signal blocked, the man called the Sir picked up the SHIELD badge on the collar of his suit. Roar shouted, Delancey, this is Jackson. You go to the west fence to check it now. This badge can not only be connected to the communication satellite of SHIELD for use as a telephone, but also has a built-in radio communication module, which can be used as an intercom when it is close. I've arrived, bang. Delancey, who was just about to make a report, only saw a huge amounts of hole in the barbed wire fence, and was knocked down by someone before he could make any response. The other agent who was walking with him also had the same fate. He lost consciousness only when he saw the shadow of a fist. Delancey, this is Jackson, please reply. Jackson frowned. Now he can be sure that Delancey has been in an accident and that this temporary base is facing threats. Soon, an agent patrolling near the fence sent a report back to him. Sir, someone was injured and the fence was destroyed. Raise the alarm, summon all the agents to take action, and pay attention to whether there are suspicious people intruding around. We have been invaded by suspicious elements. Jackson reacted quickly and immediately ordered to his men. Understood, sir. At this time, Mark and the scientists who were going to have dinner were shocked by the changes brought about by this order, and stopped their original actions. Rumble. At this time, Tiangong was also very suitable for thunder and lightning, and heavy rain fell, which brought this kind of tense atmosphere to the extreme. In addition to the rumble of thunder and the sound of heavy rain falling, the people who stood still next to the crater could still hear the sound of fighting and screams, as well as the sound of approaching footsteps. These messages indicate that the SHIELD agents failed solving the intruder, and the other side is constantly approaching here. This makes these scientists who have not engaged in actual combat and have no power to restrain chickens began to panic, and fled here one after another, hiding in a safe place. Upon seeing this, Phil Coulson also quickly contacted through the badge on his chest. Hawkeye, hurry up and take your weapon and go to the heights. Receive. Jackson, how is the situation on your side? Then Phil Coulson asked about the situation like a monitoring center. That mysterious thing suddenly broke out with a strong electromagnetic surge, and our electronic systems almost collapsed. After receiving Jackson's report, it seems that the situation is not very optimistic. Barton, please reply. Standing on the vantage point, Barton aimed his bow and arrow at the intruder. Should I knock him down, sir? Or should I send more people over and be beaten to the ground by him? Phil Coulson, I will give you instructions later, but I am beginning to agree with Mark. You really have a sense of humor. But when Phil Coulson finished saying this, he and Mark had already seen the intruder coming to the crater. The intruder is tall and robust, and his tight-fitting dress fully demonstrates his streamlined muscles. At this moment, his body is full of mud contaminated in the fighting process, and his long golden hair is also wet and entangled by the rain, but even this cannot conceal his unique temperament and the delicate and domineering face. 5 senses. Sir, now is the last chance, do you want to shoot? Hi, Barton had already stretched the bowstring, and only waited for Phil Coulson to give a lethal arrow. Wait, Phil Coulson stopped. I want to see what he is going to do. After seeing the hammer in the crater smirking for a while, the intruder grasped the handle of the hammer with one hand and tried to pick it up. But soon there was an expression of astonishment on his face, and he didn't move at all. There was no movement of the hammer to be picked up under his strong pull. Immediately he used his hands and adjusted his weight to help with the weight of his body, but there was no change in the result. No matter how hideous he was, he wanted to pick up the hammer with his, but the hammer still remained as before. There is no movement. Ah! Seeing Thor, who had stopped moving, Mark, who had been approaching him secretly, the surface of the watch on his hand bounced up, filling him with an anesthesia needle, and then moved quickly to take out a specially customized syringe for him to draw. He smashed the blood and squeezed a few hairs. Thor's genetic sample is in hand. All of Mark's movements are very concealed. He uses his body to block him, and even turns on the mind wave jammer around him. Because he knew very well that above his head, there was a Heimdall who could observe everything through time and space. He was watching Thor, Prince Asgard's every move on the earth. He didn't want to be crushed by Bifrost by the opponent. And Mark felt that there was always a seemingly non-existent gaze around Thor's place, and if he expected it well, Loki had already used the blinding technique and was hiding around him. After all this was done, Mark moved aside and handed Thor to the ground troops who had rushed over, and Thor's genetic sample had been quietly brought back to its dormant box by Magneto, which had been hidden in Mark's body. You compare my people, some of the most well-trained professionals in the world, to supermarket security guards with minimum wages. This makes us feel very frustrated. According to my experience, it must be someone who has received similar professional training to beat them down like you, or like a rich and talented guy. What kind of high-tech suit you are wearing? Tell me, where did you get your training? Pakistan, Chechnya, or Afghanistan? You look more like a mercenary. Is it Africa? There are some organizations out there that will hire such good mercenaries as you. Who are you? Quote. In the interrogation room, Thor, who had awakened from a coma, was sitting on a chair, being questioned by Phil Coulson. Facing Phil Coulson's constantly asking questions, he didn't answer anything. He just lowered his head in frustration, whether he glanced at Phil Coulson. Facing this kind of non-cooperation, Phil Coulson also kept trying, hoping that he could read some micro-expressions on his face and analyze some information, but this attempt ended in failure. Well, it seems that you don't want to talk. But in any case, we will get the information we want. This is what we do best. After speaking, Phil Coulson's communication badge suddenly sounded. Don't run around. Phil Coulson glanced at Thor, left the interrogation room with a warning. After he left, he had been unwilling but suddenly spoke. Loki. How come you appeared in Midgard? In the interrogation room where Thor should have been alone, Loki suddenly appeared in front of Thor, which surprised him. I have to come and meet you, Loki said in a heavy voice. What happened? Tell me, is it Jotunheim? Let me explain to the father, I believe, Thor asked nervously. Father is dead, Loki interrupted directly. What? Thor looked at Loki in disbelief with tears in his eyes. The expulsion of you and the threat of a resumption of war are unbearable for him in his twilight years. But don't blame yourself, I know you love him, and I tried to persuade him, but he couldn't listen. Knowing that you can no longer pick up Mjolnir but still put it in front of your eyes, this is cruel. Now the burden of the throne has fallen on my shoulders. Quote. So, can I go home? Thor raised his head and asked in a tone almost pleading. The condition of a truce with Jotunheim is to banish you forever. Okay, but is there no other way? Mother and Queen won't allow you to go home. I'm here to say goodbye, brother, I'm sorry. Loki's words made Thor completely desperate. He began to reflect and regret his impulsiveness and recklessness. No, it is me who should apologize. It is me who put Asgard in danger. Thank you for coming to see me, brother. Farewell. Loki finished his farewell, and turned and disappeared into the interrogation room. No one saw his successful conspiracy smile after turning around. Except for one person, Mark. After Magneto returned from the task, Mark replaced it with augmented reality accessories and energy wave detection components. Reality augmented components can provide Magneto with a perfect visual camouflage and help it hide well in the interrogation room. The energy wave detection component can accurately detect whether Loki is present in the interrogation room. Mark, who is familiar with the character of Loki, knows his superb blindness. He can't be spotted by the naked eye. But to cast magic requires the use of magic, and magic is a special kind of energy. As long as it is energy, its existence can be detected by the energy wave detector. Ever since Thor woke up, Mark has been hiding in his sports car, receiving voice and video signals transmitted from Magneto to him. It took less than 4 minutes for Thor to recover from a coma. This should be remembered. Asgard people metabolize anesthetics nearly 10 times faster than normal people on Earth. Loki's magic is good. It can be used as a gain for reality augmentation technology, but unfortunately he sketched the magic talisman in his body and did not collect more data. Mark is in the car, watching the difference between the two brothers as an observing character, but has been constantly analyzing and recording the information and data they inadvertently revealed in the process, turning a whole notebook. The records are full. Cole, sir, someone came over to meet the intruder. Phil Coulson, who received the news and left the interrogation room, followed him to the door of the temporary base after receiving the news reported by his subordinates. Saw a familiar face. Meet me again, Dr. Eric Selvig. It seems that you are really magical and have a lot of friends, so you came here this time to tell me that the intruder inside is called Donaldson Black. Correct it, it's Drive Donald Black. Eric. He was very anxious when he learned that you took all our research materials. That was his life's hard work. You know, people will definitely explode when encountering such things. Especially organizations like your SHIELD, with a bunch of people broke in roughly. Phil Coulson. But it's not enough to explain how he broke through our security system. Eric. He uses stimulants and he particularly likes fitness. At Jane Foster's pleading, Dr. Eric agreed to help her rescue Thor, and mobilize the contacts he had accumulated for many years, and forged a nearly real ID for Thor. It showed Thor's photo and his name was Donald Black, born on November 21, 1984, is a citizen of New York State. But after SHIELD's inspection, the system directly showed that this is a forged information, and there is no such a person at all. Despite this, Coulson accepted Eric's flawed lies and asked him to take Thor from the interrogation room. Follow them, he ordered an agent next to him. Since the positive news was unable to pry useful things from Thor's mouth, he could only think of other ways. Mark ignored the battle of wits between SHIELD and Thor, because even though it was only a day's time, he had already collected invaluable data. Think about it carefully. An advanced civilization that was able to complete man-made wormholes thousands or even tens of thousands of years before the establishment of modern human civilization and gallop through the entire universe through this technology, even if they just suddenly descended on the Earth. Playing is also enough for smart people like Mark to get what they want, and these things are enough to make a qualitative change in the existing civilization of mankind. Although he was only exposed to magic and magic in a superficial way, Mark was already obsessed with it. Even if the magic is so difficult to perceive and call, this high-level energy can almost be transformed into everything Mark can imagine in his mind. What's more interesting is how magic is used. The so-called magic is more like a formula. This formula exists naturally in the universe, but it requires explorers to use enough wisdom to discover and summarize it. Once you master this formula, the magic power passes through the medium like an addition, and you can get the result directly. This completely mathematical application can greatly simplify the production process and avoid energy loss and waste. Once successfully mastered, perhaps the Earth can really enter the highest level communist social form, which makes Mark call roar magic instead of using this form of magic, and Mark is more willing to call it Lu according to his own habits. End science. The mastery of Rune's magic talisman can also concisely help Mark break through the bottleneck encountered in the current research, such as the preparation of PIM particles. If a magic formula is used, it will probably be identification plus collection plus storage equals product PIM particles. After harvesting the magic talisman of recognition from Mjolnir, Mark can be said to be one step closer to success. In addition, the genes Mark obtained from Thor also need to spend a lot of time researching, and although Mark also dabbles in biology, he wants to thoroughly study the secrets of Asgard's longevity and power, compared to his own proficient machinery. Obviously he still needs to make up lessons. Master, you made me pay attention to the captured data waveform, which has just been detected. Oh, isn't it? It's on my home screen. Mark, who has been obsessed with researching Luan science, had to stay up all night without the nutrient hibernation cabin by his side, and once again returned to his former hard life. But early in the morning, Mark got a good news from Da Bai. In the detection instrument that Mark just set up, the exact Einstein-Rosen bridge fluctuation data was detected in the northwest 15 miles away from here. This also means that the three warriors of Asgard and the Valkyrie came to the Earth for Thor. The 4 new Asgard people represent 4 new research data, and at the same time, the magic metal spree that I have been looking forward to will soon fall from the sky. Dubai, the volatility data model is constructed to help me calculate how much energy is needed to cause the same spatial volatility under the current human technological level. Quote. Okay, Master. Horizontal gun. I'm here, Master. Change into the Autobot combat form and prepare for the battle. In a moment, a big guy will fall from the sky. All I need you to do is break the opponent into pieces and pack them into the bag. Do you understand? Understand, Master. Hengpao must complete the task and pack the things and bring them back. Very well. Besides, if you encounter any resistance in the course of the action, or if you can't stand it, I will allow you to use something like that without asking me for instructions. Did you hear? Master, are you sure you can use that on Earth? Hengpao asked suspiciously. You can use it if you have to. I have already calculated the measurement. There will be nothing wrong. Don't worry. Yes, sir, this is the place where the energy riot occurred. The coordinates are exactly the same as before, and the same pattern as before was found. According to Mr. Mark's remarks, this should be the Lewin text representing Shaking Road to Heaven. If his guess is correct, it means that a new outsider has arrived. An agent who arrived first reported to Phil Coulson. Sir, the police detective in the town reported that they found 4 strangers dressed in retro style. They just met with Donald Black, who was taken away by Dr. Eric. Another agent reported to Phil Coulson. Arrive. Monitor them, we will deal with the situation here, immediately. Before Phil Coulson finished the arrangement, a gust of wind blew up, and the rolled flying sand and rocks interrupted Phil Coulson to give orders. Boom! With a loud noise, the storm stopped abruptly, and the dust dispersed. At the location where they had just awakened and explored, a steel giant over 4 meters tall appeared. Sir, is that a Stark consultant? I don't know. He doesn't tell me anything. Phil Coulson said uncertainly. Then he took out a big loudspeaker and shouted at the steel giant, Hello. You are using unregistered weapon technology, please show your identity. However, the steel giant didn't have any answer to you, Phil Coulson. Its response was a beam of high temperature that could destroy everything. Run. When Phil Coulson saw something bad, he immediately screamed, and the surrounding agents were also well trained, and they all swiftly scattered and fled without waiting for the order. However, the power of the steel giant's high temperature beam is really terrifying. The powerful energy allows it to kill the car after it shoots through the car, and several agents who can't escape are sacrificed for this reason. Master, the same spatial fluctuation data was captured again. On the other hand, Mark, who hadn't arrived halfway, also received a big white notice. Horizontal cannon, faster. The destroyer has arrived. In order to save the time of shapeshifting, Mark is now sitting on the shoulder of the horizontal cannon in Autobot form and giving orders to it. No problem, Master. After receiving the order, Hengpao looked even more excited, and the pair of Hot Wheels under his feet continued to accelerate and rushed out with a swish. For Asgard, bang! When Mark arrived on the scene, the 3 warriors of Asgard and Valkyrie Sif, who came to the Earth first, were already at war with the destroyer. And just now, he charged bravely, but was punched and flew by the destroyer in front of Mark. It was Vostag who used the tomahawk among the 3 warriors. Although the 3 warriors of Asgard and Valkyrie Sif cooperated tacitly, in the face of the ultimate weapon of the king of God Odin, the warriors of the gods, Domain had no fight back. Hengpao, it's up to you. If you don't show up, these alien visitors will turn into coke, and the research value will be greatly reduced. Seeing that the situation of Asgard's visitors is not good, Mark is no longer obsessed with it. Hengpao quickly shot. Don't worry, Master. It's not my Hengpao targeting them, everyone in front of you is happy. After speaking, all the floating cannons behind Hengpao were all gathered together to form a huge amounts of floating cannon body. Full firepower. The energy rays of dozens of floating cannons superimposed and interfered with each other according to the method set by Mark in advance, releasing a shocking cannon beyond imagination. Z. A high-frequency energy ray with a diameter of more than half a meter hit the destroyer's face, who was about to launch a high-temperature beam. The collision of two violent energy caused an energy explosion, which would continue to pursue the destruction of the three warriors of Asgard. The bomber turned a somersault backwards and fell to the ground in embarrassment. Good job, Mark. Seeing this scene, Phil Coulson, who had already evacuated to safety, waved his fists in surprise, as excited as a child who had received a surprise gift. Don't think that we people on Earth are easy to bully. You high gods can't please in the face of wisdom that is too hard to guess. Phil Coulson was very happy here, but Thor and the Asgard men seemed very shocked. They were dumbfounded as they watched the destroyer's horizontal cannon flying away, and they couldn't say a word in surprise. Jane, has your Earth's technology developed to this point? Thor asked, turning his head to look at Jane beside him. Jane shook her head and replied, for such a thing, maybe only the father and son Stark can do it on the whole Earth. However, everyone is still too happy. The effect of the explosion seems to be astonishing. In fact, the destroyer's high-temperature beam has consumed part of the energy beam, and the remaining attack becomes an explosive shockwave. For the destroyer built by Lu Metal, the damage received is negligible. The destroyer who fell to the ground did not remain silent for too long, and the light of his whole body recovered again, twisting his body and stood up from the ground again. Boom! The resurrected destroyer, without saying a word, is a high-temperature beam directly to enemies who dare to provoke him. Boom! The destroyer's attack came very quickly, but the automatic defense system of the horizontal artillery reacted very quickly. The floating artillery quickly changed the formation and dispersed to form an energy barrier, blocking this attack. But after the destroyer's attack was blocked, he did not stop to look for opportunities. Instead, relying on his own energy advantage, he continued to output, making the high-temperature beam constantly hit the energy barrier. In just a few seconds, there were many small cracks visible to the naked eye on the energy barrier of the horizontal gun. Horizontal gun, don't wait any longer, the opponent's strength is beyond expectation. Before the energy barrier is broken, use the thing directly. Understand? Heng Pao got the instructions from Mark and didn't dare to neglect. I saw a mechanism suddenly opened on his chest, and inside the mechanism was a tightly wound metal coil, and it contained a black metal object with a file size and shape that was close to an olive. Master, I am about to remove the isolation measures from the magnetic device and launch an antimatter annihilation bomb. Please step back a little and go to a safe distance. That's right, it is the antimatter annihilation bomb. Moreover, the annihilation bomb developed by Mark does not use antimatter annihilation energy as a propellant or explosive, but directly allows the antimatter in it to contact the target, resulting in a counter-matter cancellation, which explodes huge energy to destroy the target. You know, calculated according to Einstein's mass-energy equation, 1 gram of antimatter and 1 gram of antimatter can produce 180 trillion joules of energy, which is equivalent to 43,000 tons of TNT explosives. Although the antimatter contained in this antimatter annihilation bomb on the chest of the horizontal gun is less than 1/10 millionth of a gram, the power generated by the explosion is still not to be underestimated. But in order to be able to store this antimatter annihilation bomb safely, Mark spent 3 months in the virtual laboratory when designing the device. Therefore, after hearing the warning from the horizontal cannon, Mark did not dare to stay for a moment. He turned his head and ran. While running, he shouted at the Asgard group of 4 and Jane and his group nearby, "Run, this time it's a big firework." The people who originally wanted to stay in place to watch the show saw Mark's reaction and hurriedly turned around and left, for fear of being affected. The attack power of the horizontal artillery just now falls in their eyes. The attack that is about to happen now, even its inventor has to run away for safety. Naturally, they will not take their lives as the price to watch Mark's mouth. Great firework. Click. The cracks that appeared on the energy barrier have become more and more obvious. The cracks that appeared earlier have completely spread across the entire energy barrier. The last mobile phone will be in front of you. The horizontal artillery decisively released the electromagnetic force field that bound the antimatter, and then the magnetic field reversed, forming an electromagnetic thrust on the center projectile. The annihilation projectile body that obtained a great acceleration in an instant, achieved a speed of more than Mach 1 in the instant of launch, and lost out. At the same time, the horizontal artillery also lifted the energy barrier in front of him, and then rolled to avoid the destroyer's high-temperature beam. After the energy barrier was lifted, the floating gun quickly gathered to the position of the horizontal gun, and then layer by layer formed several barriers just covering the surface of its body. Such a serious posture was obviously to deal with the impact of the coming explosion. Boom! The sky-shaking sound blew across the entire town, and the powerful power directly razed the entire town to the ground, which can be erased from the map at this moment. The burnt red ground is full of magma that has melted at high temperatures, and looking like the sky, you can clearly see that the originally uniform cloud layer has been broken through a huge amounts of hole in the middle. However, Hengpao had no time to be shocked by such a scene. As soon as the explosion ended, he immediately speeded up and ran away from the center of the explosion. Because in his holographic scanning system, he was surprised to capture the destroyer who still had an energy response. In other words, its killer failed. When it notified Mark who had fled to safety, Mark also had a face of disbelief. He thought that under the attack of antimatter annihilation bombs, even Deadpool and Wolverine would be inevitable, but he didn't expect it. Can destroy the destroyer. Where is the problem? Backquote. Mark really can't figure it out. The power of this annihilation bomb should not be weaker than Thor's strongest blow after regaining Thor's power, or even a victory. However, according to the original plot, he knew Thor easily put the destroyer to the ground after regaining his strength, but his own assassin trick did not work, which made Mark very annoyed. In fact, this is not because the antimatter annihilation bomb developed by Mark is not strong enough, but Ulu Metal is not only a perfect magic medium, but also has a strong inertia and resistance to forces other than magic. In addition, Ulu Metal originally has a certain self-healing ability, so under the same conditions, Thor can easily reach the destroyer by using physical attacks with magical powers, and Mark's side even has a few energy levels higher, but because there is no magical power, blessing cannot cause a fatal blow to the destroyer. The other side. Seeing this terrifying hellish scene before him, Thor finally understands why his father Odin has been working to maintain the peace between Asgard and Jotunheim. The cruelty and horror brought about by the war, at the moment has been fully demonstrated in front of Thor. Once a war starts, for both sides of the war, there are no victors, but only victims. At this moment, he understood his recklessness and impulsivity, and his father's painstaking efforts towards him. Thor knew that he could not continue to hide. He must stand up and end the battle, even if he sacrificed his life. He took a slow step and walked towards the destroyer who came to the edge of the explosion. Backquote. What are you going to do, Thor? Behind him, Jane was surprised when he saw this scene. Roar let out a cold voice. Thor didn't answer, just turned her head and gave her a big smile, and then moved on. Loki, no matter how I wrong you, no matter what I did to make you like this, I'm really sorry. But these people are innocent, and killing them will do you no good. So, kill me, and stop here. Quote. In this regard, the destroyer in front of Thor accepted, or Loki behind the destroyer accepted. With a sharp fist, it hit Thor, just about to fall on Thor. Suddenly, the sky was covered with dark clouds, the wind was blowing, clang. Before the destroyer's fist fell on Thor's face, it was blocked by an unknown object flying at high speed. And seeing this scene, Thor showed an excited smile on his face, stretched out his right hand, and grasped the unknown object that dropped him. There was a thunder in the sky, lightning struck Thor down, and what he held high was the lost and recovered Mjolnir. Rumble. In the strong electric light, Thor completed his gorgeous metamorphosis, once again wearing a battle armor cloak, appeared in front of everyone. In the face of Thor, who regained the power of Thor, and the destroyer was not in control of the King Odin, bang, bang, bang. Thor naturally blasted the hammer at the destroyer, turning it into a pile of broken copper and iron. Is this how you are? Looking at Thor, who returned from Nirvana, Jane asked with love and admiration in his eyes. Thor, almost, really handsome. Jane stared at him and nodded in praise. We need to go back to where Bifrost was. There is still something unresolved between my brother and I, Thor said to the Asgard group of 4. Excuse me. At this time Phil Coulson and his men also came here. Donald, I think you didn't tell me the truth. Listen, son of Cole, you and I, we are all working to protect this world war. Starting from today, I will form an alliance with you. But you have to return the things you took from Jane. Quote, no problem, we will return her equipment so she can continue her research. Ignoring Phil Coulson, who was having a good time with Thor, Mark was taking advantage of the fact that everyone's attention was no longer here, and he asked Heng Pao to help himself collect as many Ulu metal wrecks from the destroyer as possible. This is related to his future research on Luan technology, and should not be taken lightly. When he finished collecting as many materials as he could, Thor had followed Bifrost and returned to his country. The two did not have any communication during this crisis, but knew that he and Thor would meet again sooner or later. Mark, I have no regrets about this. Coupled with the many gains from this trip, Mark can be said to be overjoyed. With Thor leaving the Earth with his Mjolnir, Mark's journey this time is over. Mark followed Phil Coulson and a group of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. He did not return to Stark Manor or his company. Instead, he came to the office of S.H.I.E.L.D. headquarters, Nick Fury, for the first time. How do you feel? Is this transaction a good value for money or a high price? Nick Fury sat on an hot office chair and asked Mark, who looked at the door with interest. I'm sorry, I haven't lost money when I do business underneath. If I don't turn my profit by 200%, I think it's a loss-making business. Mark shrugged, showing a very sluggish look. Well, in that case, our transaction is considered a win-win, and we can draw a full stop. This time I asked Phil Coulson to invite you over. The most important thing is to ask you about this time. I hope you can tell me what you know and the true thoughts in your heart. Quote, then this is another deal, because the news in my hand is very valuable. Mark smiled like a money fan, but soon became serious again. It's okay, I will pay the equivalent transaction based on your answers. The first question, do you think the gods of Norse mythology really exist? Fury asked his question in a clear and slow voice, his face revealed a touch of solemnity. Perhaps they were able to show off in front of mankind and call them gods, but in my opinion, they are nothing more than a more advanced and developed alien civilization. Thousands of years of development are not in vain. After listening to Mark's words, Fury nodded in agreement. It is not the first time he has dealt with alien life. When he was young, he was shocked by these more advanced civilizations and worried about the future of mankind. It was under such worries that he secretly prepared the Avengers plan. But looking at the progress of human civilization, science and technology are advancing by leaps and bounds. With the support of powerful new weapons, Fury has become more and more confident in defending the safety of the Earth. Mark's words can be said to be indented in his heart. Second question, what do you think of the alliance that Thor said before he left? Fury was a little nervous after asking this question. This kind of thing shouldn't be asked about minors like Mark. But for Fury, this is his only choice. In the whole incident, Mark participated in the whole process, and not only was he almost a demon, but he was also the person who has studied Asgard, this extraterrestrial civilization, most deeply. If anyone can answer this question, only Mark will be the only one. The universe is a dark forest. Every civilization is a hunter with a gun, sneaking in the forest like a ghost, gently pulling away the branches blocking the way, trying to keep the footsteps from making a sound. Even Roar must be careful. He must be careful, because there are hunters who sneak like him everywhere in the forest. If he finds other life, he can do only one thing, shoot and destroy it. In this forest, others are hell and eternity. Any life that exposes its existence will soon be wiped out. This is the picture of cosmic civilization. This is an interpretation of Fermi's paradox in his novel, Three Body 2, The Dark Forest, by Liu Cixin, a Chinese science fiction writer I like very much. The third one has been released recently, you can buy it and have a look. I think the views in the book are great, and I also agree very much that survival is the first priority of a civilization, and the opposite of the continuous development and expansion of civilization is the dwindling of cosmic resources as it consumes day by day. If we look at the attitude of alien civilizations towards us with the highest kindness, let alone such innocence in the vast universe, even on the Earth we live on will sooner or later be wiped out. In the face of Asgard, an advanced civilization that is countless times stronger than us, I think there is a sentence in the book that is very suitable for the situation. I destroy you, it has nothing to do with you. I destroy you, it has nothing to do with you. After hearing Mark's last words, Fury murmured repeatedly in astonishment as if he had been shocked by the soul. If you have realized that you are weak, then try your best to hide yourself. In the face of Thor's alliance, is there a second option for the weak Earth besides obedience? Mark relentlessly asked and answered the question Fury posed to him. I'll be prepared for your payment, and now you can go back. Since becoming the chief, Fury has not tried to be as confused as today, and needs someone to think carefully. Mark also nodded, got up and left. Suddenly Fury said, I'll look for it. What? That book, 3 Body, I will look for it. Mark smiled slightly, turned and left the office. After Mark left, Fury took out a document from the drawer of his desk. The progress of the Avengers project should be accelerated. Welcome home, Mark. Long time no see, JARVIS. Putting on his comfortable slippers and putting down his heavy luggage, Mark returned to his room and fell on his back on the bed. With the genetic samples of Ulu Metal and Thor brought back from New Mexico, Mark has ordered Hengpao to send them back to his company's laboratory first. What annoyed him was that he devoted himself to the collection of Ulu Metal and forgot to collect more genetic samples from the Asgard Quartet. It could be said that he missed a great opportunity and wanted to encounter such a great opportunity again. Unless Mark can go to Asgard himself, he can only wait until Asgard is subjugated by Thanos, and all the people of God's domain have migrated to the Earth. 710 is really a long wait. But for now, Mark has no intention of continuing to study the secrets of Ulu Metal and Asgard's genes. The battle of Hengpao against the Destroyer has had a great impact on him. Mark didn't expect that his confident antimatter annihilation bomb could not defeat the Destroyer. Although he believes that as long as he continues to increase the antimatter content in it, he will definitely be able to change this result, but the impact will not be able to bear by himself. Therefore, after receiving the lessons of this defeat, Mark believes that his top priority is to create his own assassin that can limit the damage to the surroundings within a certain range, while also being able to accurately strike the target and eliminate it. And the weapon concept that can meet these two requirements at the same time, the first thing that pops out in Mark's mind is the space-based weapon. Space-based weapons, as the name suggests, are weapons that launch attacks from the sky. Specifically, it is a weapon system launched by weapons-carrying platforms, satellites, space stations, etc. in Earth orbit or other planetary orbits and used to strike the enemy's ground, underground, sea, on-orbit strategic targets and harmful targets outside the sky. Because it is deployed in space, as long as the number of equipment is sufficient, it can achieve all-weather, dead-angle strikes without worrying about the embarrassment of forgetting to bring equipment. Moreover, its deployment method determines that it is in an absolute advantageous position on the battlefield, and it is more difficult to destroy. It can be said to be a perfect weapon concept, if you ignore its high cost and technical bottlenecks that are difficult to accurately locate. However, whether it is money or technology, these 2 points are not a problem in Mark's view, because he wants money, and ability, and he has all the basic conditions to complete this idea. For the idea of space-based weapons, there are currently 2 main solutions. The first solution is a simple version that converts gravitational potential energy into kinetic energy. The principle is to send a 50-ton tungsten rod into space. A weapon-carrying platform can accommodate 10 tungsten rods. One tungsten rod is about 5 m in length and has a diameter of around 0.8 m. The tungsten rod has a high density and a mass of about 50 tons. The tungsten rod is thrown from space to the Earth through the aiming system, and the target is hit by the acceleration of gravity. The power is comparable to a nuclear bomb, but there is no nuclear radiation and nuclear pollution. It can be said to be highly efficient and environmentally friendly. There are only 2 difficulties with this solution for Mark. The first is how to accurately aim. When tungsten rods fall from space, they will be affected by the Earth's atmosphere. How to accurately achieve precise strikes based on its aerodynamic characteristics and the environmental characteristics at the time is a difficult problem. The other is that although the tungsten rod can withstand high temperatures below 3,390 degrees Celsius, the violent friction in the atmosphere during the fall will still cause great loss of its quality and ultimately affect the attack effect. Regarding the first difficulty, as long as a suitable landing algorithm model is adapted, and a posture adjustment system is added to the tungsten rod, the problem can be solved. As for the second point, it's even simpler. It's a big deal to spend a little more money and coat the surface with a layer of 5 carbide and 4 tantalum hafnium. Everything is not a problem. 0. But Mark does not intend to use the first space-based weapon plan, because its strike speed is too slow. If it is a devastating blow to a place, its ability definitely is beyond doubt. But for an enemy who can move and escape, when the tungsten rod falls to the aiming point through the action of gravitational acceleration, the enemy has already noticed it and avoided it. Therefore, Mark's research and development direction will be the second form of space-based weapons launching high-energy particle beams to perform energy strikes on targets. The principle of high-energy particle beam is to use an accelerator to accelerate particles such as protons and neutrons to a very high value, and to form a very thin particle beam through electrodes or magnetic clusters and emit them for bombardment of targets. The projection speed of particle beam weapons is close to the speed of light, and the energy transmitted by the particle beam to the target within a unit solid angle is greater than that of the laser, and it can penetrate deep into the target. However, when it is transmitted in the atmosphere, its power will rapidly decay due to constant collisions with air molecules. If you want to turn this idea into reality and become your own killer, the problem of energy attenuation is the difficulty Mark needs to overcome now. As for the launching of other weapon platforms and the endurance of energy supply, Mark only wants to say one thing: I'm sorry, you can really do whatever you want with money. Relying on the arc reactor technology, Mark believes that it can guarantee the long-term battery life of the space-based platform. The big deal is that Mark designed an antimatter energy furnace for it. No matter how wasteful it is, it will always be enough. You know, since Mark was able to successfully prepare and preserve antimatter, he has not developed other applications for antimatter other than annihilation bombs. This time may be a good opportunity. I have an idea. Now it's time to enter the virtual laboratory and work hard. In the virtual laboratory with 1,000 times acceleration, Mark spent 4 hours of real time to finally solve the problem of energy attenuation caused by the collision of high-energy particle beams with air molecules in the atmosphere. He added 2 sets of particle accelerators to the weapon-carrying platform. When the 2 new sets of particle accelerators are accelerated by an electromagnetic field, they will be subjected to vibrations of different frequencies. The principle of Mark to eliminate this attenuation is to use 3 beams of high-speed particle streams with different vibration frequencies to produce a special effect. The particle beams projected in this form can completely destroy the chemical bonds in any molecule, and this destroyed molecule will release energy waves, and the affected molecules will continue this effect, similar to a chain nuclear reaction, and eventually this chain reaction is transmitted to the target that needs to be hit at the speed of light. In order to ensure that this reaction can be terminated in time, will not be infinitely affected by the chain, and eventually form an energy tide sufficient to destroy the Earth, Mark specially selected the decay element particle. This reaction will change the amplitude and frequency after the particle decays, thereby interrupting the reaction process. After completing the attack system part of the space-based weapon, Mark has begun to continue working on the antimatter energy furnace, hoping to use it as the energy core of the entire space-based weapon. Compared with the arc reactor, the advantages of the antimatter energy furnace are that the energy released is greater, and the instantaneous power can reach 46 times of the arc reactor. The shortcomings are also obvious, due to uncontrollable energy bursts and unable to provide stable output voltage and electric current. This feature is suitable for particle accelerators that require instantaneous high voltage and high electric current to eject particles. The research and development of the antimatter energy furnace did not bring any challenges to Mark. This is actually the same as turning the nuclear energy generated by the atomic bomb into the nuclear energy generated by the nuclear power plant. As long as the original uncontrollable pros and cons are annihilated, certain restrictions are added so that the energy of annihilation can be fully utilized. For this, Mark set up a reaction model through complicated mathematical calculations, and built a complete set of mechanical structure of the reaction furnace through this mathematical model. Finally, after completing the structural design of the entire space-based weapon satellite, and putting the attack module and energy core into it, the complete high-energy particle beam space-based weapon design is complete. After all the theoretical research has been completed, Mark directly throws the design drawings into the hands of the master, and asks it to order materials and accessories through the company, and then use the intelligent production room in the basement to produce the entire weapon. At the same time, Mark also used Tony's connections to contact the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, and successfully obtained permission to launch a private micro. Therefore, On the morning of July 19, 2011, under Mark's gaze, 4 space-based weapon satellites disguised as company's business satellites went straight to the sky under the antimatter power engine configured by Mark, and after several changes after the track, all successfully entered the preset track and started normal work. But this is not the thing that makes Mark the most emotional today. When Mark has completed all the theoretical calculations and verifications in the virtual laboratory, and passed the feasibility test through the computer model, he knew that the result of this event was a success. There will be no other options. The event that made Mark even more emotional today came from a phone call from Nick Fury, who had not been in touch for a long time. Mark, we now need to ask you to confirm a message, whether you can directly use it for a living person who has been sleeping in an ice-bound state for 70 years if you traded the nutritional dormant capsule in our hands. Nick Fury's tone is serious and nervous. Obviously, he has encountered a very important thing at the moment, and Mark's answer will affect the direction of this matter. And Mark has already heard who is the living person who has been frozen for 70 years in his mouth, and who else can be besides Captain America. Counting the days, Mark can't remember the exact time when Captain America awakened in the previous Life movie, but it is inferred that Captain America was discovered from the North Pole based on the New York War that took place in 2012. No, the low temperature will cause the nutrient solution to penetrate into the cell, forming crystals in it, causing irreversible damage to the cell. My suggestion is to wait for it to thaw and its body temperature to return to more than 10 degrees Celsius before putting it into nutritional dormancy. The body is repaired in the cabin so that the best repair effect can be obtained. Understood, but if you can, I hope you can come to headquarters right away, so that we can rest assured. I'm in Houston, give me 2 hours. No problem, I am waiting for you here with a surprise. Fury said mysteriously. On the phone, Mark smiled and didn't reply. If you know what the 4 big guys I just launched into the sky are, I think you will be more pleasantly surprised than me. Washington, SHIELD headquarters. Mark, who arrived in a hurry, at the moment is carefully examining an old popsicle in front of him. How can you make sure that he can recover without fail? Fury stood behind Mark and asked in a low voice. I'm not a see-through eye, nor an old Chinese doctor. When I look at it for a few minutes, I'm watching and asking about it. Mark rolled his eyes and said irritably. It deserves to be a stalker. What about the inspection report made by your previous military health assistant? What did it say? Next to Fury, a medical doctor from SHIELD passed the report to Mark and said, the report shows that Steve's metabolism is extremely slow, which is very similar to the hibernation state of some animals in nature. There was no frostbite in the tissues, and the muscles and nerves of the body did not shrink. It was just that his heart rate was very weak. If he thaws rashly, it may cause serious complications such as cardiac arrest or arterial rupture. Quote. Indeed, in the face of such a peculiar case that has been frozen for 70 years, no one has come before, no one can be overly cautious. Under the ice layer with a temperature below -40 degrees Celsius, being frozen for so long without any damage to the body tissues is already a medical miracle. Although the captain's vital signs still seem to be very stable, it is still the world. It looks like a delicate but fragile gem. Once lightly touched, it may break this delicate balance and cause the death of the captain. In this regard, Mark can only propose a conservative solution. If for his own reasons, the captain Steve Rogers, who could have recovered safely, would ascend to the sky, Mark would feel guilty for his life. Let's open a hole in the vein of the arm and inject glucose solution for it. Now the captain's body functions that have been sealed for a long time are awakened, and after a slow low temperature thaw, you can safely send it into the nutrient dormancy chamber for body fixed it. However, the composition of the nutrient solution needs to be adjusted slightly so that it can produce more energy supply and nutrient supply. For this body that has not eaten for 70 years, it needs a lot of supplement. Quote. Fury looked at the medical doctor beside him, and the other nodded, expressing his agreement to Mark's plan. Okay, just follow the plan Mark, you said. Seeing that the 2 authorities in front of him had agreed to this plan, Fury also nodded and approved it. He also believed that with Mark's ability, nothing went wrong. Things really did not come as Fury expected, and it went very smoothly. After the restoration of the nutritional dormancy cabin, Steve Rogers' physical condition has returned to a healthy level, and various physical indicators have reached normal standards. Except for the long sleep, the biological clock has not been adjusted and the brain wave amplitude is weak, and it has not fully recovered for a while. It can be said that the thawing plan has been completely successful this time, and the rest is only relying on the effect of the good medicine of time, helping Steve gradually recover. Seeing Captain America, who was fully recovered in front of him, lying peacefully in the recuperation bed, Mark was a little emotional. The characters that only existed in the past, not only appeared in front of me, but were also resurrected by my own hands. The surprise of fate is really wonderful. So should I call him Grandpa Steve or Brother Steve? Quote. When Fury heard Mark's words, he didn't expect that he was sighing about his past life. It was only when Mark thought of Steve as a fictional character that only exists in comics and novels, exposing 2 rows of big white teeth and explaining to Mark, Steve was not at the time. The role fictionalized by the government in order to boost morale is not even a fantasizing person with the brains of various writers. At that time, Steve had indeed established a remarkable hero, a legendary hero, in order to win the war. Moreover, he and your grandfather Howard are close friends. The two had been on the battlefield together at the time. However, looking at his current appearance, although it may be messy to back up, it is more appropriate for you to call him Uncle. Quote. You don't understand, what I said is not the same as what you said. But depending on your arrangement of this room, are you not going to tell him the truth directly? Looking at this room full of colors and objects from the last century, it really makes people have a sense of going back to the past through time and space. He needs a process. If you tell him the truth all at once, I'm afraid he won't be able to accept it. After all, he owes a person the promise of dancing together for 70 years. But I think this method of yours may not work. No matter how clever the acting is, and hasn't lived in that era, it is impossible for the agent to show the atmosphere of that era. What's more, Captain America is a veteran and he has also been injected with super soldier serum. It is better than ordinary agents in terms of insight and perception. If you don't arrange this for 10 minutes, you will definitely be caught by him. To see through. Quote. Then what do you want to do? Listen to your tone of voice, you should already have a good idea. Mark smiled mysteriously. Have you forgotten what is the most profitable product for me? Since he wants to dance, let him dance well and let him spend his whole life in the virtual world. When we return to reality, is it not easy to accept the truth? Is it really possible? Fury frowned, worried. At least it's more reliable, isn't it? How are you preparing? Everything is ready. Standing in front of the workbench, Mark spent a short time building a platform through the virtual world, building a scene from the 1940s and 1950s, and creating a large number of intelligent NPCs through the character information and character description provided by S.H.I.E.L.D. For characters who are closely related to Captain America, Mark also specifically loads an AI system, and uses a large white emotion perception engine for hardware support in the background. In the simulation experiment, even Fury could not detect a flaw. It can be said to be perfect. Mark is now in the final debugging and finishing work. When this step is completed, he can try to connect Steve's thought wave to the virtual reality host, and use nerve gear to stimulate his cerebral cortex to make his thinking become more active again. After debugging, you can connect to the device. After Mark checked the last parameter, he said with the staff on the other side. At the moment, Steve, who was successfully thawed, has been put on nerve gear and placed in the nutritional dormancy bin, waiting for the restoration of his body and the activation of his brain. After Mark announced that the preparation was complete, the staff next to the nutritional dormancy compartment pressed the button to start the whole set of equipment. At the same time, Steve's body data and brain activity data were generated and transmitted to the screen in front of Mark. Body functions have begun to climb, and the metabolic rate is steadily increasing. When the body functions return to 48% of the preset value, NerveGear's mind wave interference can be activated to stimulate Steve's brain activity. While observing the data of the observer, Mark makes various adjustments on the console, while issuing instructions to tell the rest of the staff the tasks to be completed and the correct timing. When the number displayed on the screen reached the standard, Mark gave an order. Okay, now turn on nerve gear, and raise the frequency modulation of the mind wave interference to the maximum. Yes, after receiving instructions, the staff completed their work in an orderly manner. Facing various emergency situations and major tasks all the year round in S.H.I.E.L.D., they also tempered their psychological qualities to a very strong level, although their operations are related to the legendary hero Steve. He was alive and dead, but he was still able to maintain his working condition without panic. As the mind wave interference is turned on, the data shows that Steve's brain activity value has also soared. Switching the screen and opening the virtual world's God's perspective, the team leader's activity should almost reach the limit. The virtual world 1949, New York. Opening his eyes again, what caught Steve's eyes was not the battlefield filled with gunpowder, nor the crowded barracks. Surrounded by a wall painted with pale yellow wall paint, on the left is a bright window with white gauze floating, and a ray of the morning sun is shining on his face through the glass. Reaching out and touching the bed under him, it was very soft, and the air was filled with a faint smell of disinfectant. Combined with the needle attached to the bottle on the back of his right hand, Steve quickly made a judgment in his mind: I'm not dead. I was rescued and sent to the hospital for treatment. Then immediately he remembered the name Marco made him dream about, the woman he agreed to dance with, Katie. He is a little confused now. Steve is not sure how late he was in a coma, but what he is sure is that he wants to see Katie right now, whether it's for the appointment or an apology. But at this moment, very coincidence, Peggy Cat took a bunch of flowers and pushed the door into the room. Steve, you're awake. Seeing Steve, who was awake sitting on the bed, Katie looked very excited, and the bouquet in his hand fell directly to the ground because of shock. But she didn't pay attention to it, and jumped straight over, hugging Steve tightly. I'm so worried that you won't be able to wake up like this anymore. I thought that our dance would never have a chance to come true. Katie said in Steve's ear with a cry of joy. It seems that I'm still late. Seeing the traces of time left on Kat's face and the thoughts of himself in the words, Steve knew that he should have been lying in the hospital bed for a long time. What year is it now? NS. It's 1949, and the Second World War has all ended, because Stark helped us complete a big guy. Not long ago, the last member of the Axis powers also announced unconditional surrender, and our allies won. Card Tot held Steve's face, stared at him, and happily announced the happy news to the other party. This is really good news, but where am I? Steve's expression suddenly became serious, and the look in Kat's eyes became sharp, no longer the gentleness he was just now. I don't know what you are talking about, Rogers, Katie said with a grieved expression. You have created everything perfectly, the light yellow walls that make people relax and vigilant, the sunshine and bay windows that give people safety hints, and even the perfection of your appearance and language demeanor. But you missed one thing, that is the look in your eyes. That is not the look in Kat's eyes. Although you are trying to hide it, your eyes are all false love. Tell me, who are you and where am I now? Quote, this time he asked, but Steve was no longer just threatening with his eyes. He grabbed Kato in front of him, then tore off the needle in his right hand and pointed it at Kato's right eye. Tell me my answer. But the answer may be cruel. Katie's face was not afraid of Steve's threat, and even his eyes were still full of false love in his mouth. Tell me, I feel that I have been dreaming for too long, and I need to be real now. This is the truth you want. After saying that, in front of Steve, the Kato who had only become a bit mature began to quickly become old, his hair gradually thinning and gray, and his skin became dry and wrinkled, a tall soldier. The posture has also become rickety. Watching this scene, Steve was silent, a stream of heat slid down the corner of his eyes. The outside world, SHIELD headquarters. Everyone, get ready, the captain is about to break through the limitations of virtual stealth and wake up. Bang bang bang. There was a dull sound from the dormant cell. Finally, in Fury's distressed eyes, this valuable dormant cell was opened by Steve from the inside violently. Freed from the nutritional dormancy, Steve put on a defensive attack posture, watching the strange environment and strange faces around him vigilantly. Who are you? Where am I? Don't be nervous, Captain Rogers. Listen, I deeply apologize to you for the deception just now, but we think it's best for you to accept this slowly. Fury stood up and raised his hands to indicate that he did not. Threatened, explained to him. Accept what? You have been asleep, Captain. You have been asleep for about 70 years. Are you okay? Fury looked at Steve with some worry. No, I'm fine, it's just, I missed an important date. Steve's face was bitter and his voice was very lost. If you want to make up for this regret, you can enter the virtual world and continue the story just now. Mark was still a single dog who had never been in a relationship in his past and present. Nowhere is more suitable than in the virtual world. Thank you for your suggestion, young man, but I don't need it anymore. Can you still enjoy the broken dream? Can you tell me your name? You look like a friend of mine. My name is Mark Stark, and I am the grandson of your friend. The big guy you broke just now is my invention of. Steve smiled at Mark. It seems you are as smart as him. In fact, their family is very smart. If you want to understand the changes in the world over the past 70 years faster, it should be the most convenient and quickest to experience it in the virtual reality world. Fury suggested next to him. Yes, I can make an exception to open up the time acceleration program of the virtual world to you, so that you can have a thorough understanding of the changes in the world over the past 70 years in only half a month. The time in the virtual world can be accelerated. Why haven't you told me about this? Fury looked at Mark in surprise, but he didn't expect that the other party would still have a hand in this transaction. It's not for sale. You can't buy it if you say it. Why tell you? Mark answered this question with confidence. In the face of this answer, Fury really has no choice but to take Mark, because the two parties' transaction is Mark's invention and S.H.I.E.L.D. bid for exchange. If Mark is a technology that he didn't intend to use in the first place, then it really can't be said that he has made a profit by doing business. Steve, this is indeed a magical invention. It seems that if I don't want to be an antique, accepting your suggestions is the best choice. Don't worry, I promise that the story inside will be very exciting. Mark promised, patting his chest. Mark is indeed a master of storytelling. After all, he has read a lot of online novels on Philo in his previous life. In the virtual world he set for Steve, the development and changes of society and technology are displayed in front of Steve with some very interesting plots. In addition, Mark deleted some less important content, which greatly shortened the time of this virtual world life. The team leader was able to understand the development and changes in the past 70 years in a week, although he did not completely change himself. Past habits, but at least I understand how to live in this technological age. I feel as if I have never fallen asleep. The vacancy of these 70 years has been best compensated in the virtual world you created. This is really a great creation. Perhaps it is because Mark is a descendant of Howard, and Steve likes to communicate with him very much. Although it was only a short period of 8 or 9 days, the two people with similar personalities gradually became friends of the year. Do you know the kind of fear in my heart when I woke up from this era? Everything I know and familiar with me rushes forward with the long river of time, only the frozen me is abandoned at the same place, I can only watch them go away. I still can't forget. During the long years of being frozen in ice, I don't know how many times I dreamed of her. Every time she appeared, all I saw was the moment before my crash. The intercom was stuck in helpless eyes. Mark shook his head. In his previous life, he was not afraid of losing because he hadn't had it before. In this life, he has had a smooth life so far, and he hasn't experienced shin like this. People always like nostalgia, because the past will never be back. Compared with the future within reach, the unsatisfactory past has a hazy romance and beauty. But since you have woken up in this era, if you don't hold fast to the future now, maybe today's day will become a regret that you will miss. Steve chuckled when he heard what Mark said, looking at your young age, how come you have such a deep sense of life? The chicken soup for the soul scene from the internet, technology changes lives. This is my grandfather's favorite saying, isn't it? By the way, can your shield lend me a few days? Mark said suddenly. Yes, that was originally made by your grandpa Howard, but what are you doing with it? Steve asked puzzled. I have a good idea, a shield that is especially suitable for you. I think maybe it can be modified. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.